Joey, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
I wanted to talk a bit on the environmental issues.
Okay,
Would you be down?
sure.
So, are you just to help me level set? Are you on the side of that at 2 or 3 degrees centigrade we're talking about a billion casualties, or are you more on the side of humanity can survive no matter the changing climate conditions?
I mean, I think human health is tied to environmental health. Like it is one of the same. So like we can't like exist as like a healthy human population without an environment. So like we have to conserve what we have here and rehabilitate the environments that we do exist already. We are definitely on the path of unsustainability. If we keep going, we're going to live in a world in 100 years that is not sustainable for humans. So, I'm very wary of that, and it's like one of my biggest concerns.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess for me, I've also been very interested from environmentalism, not as a profession, like I'm not an environmental engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but I remember being a little kid and this belief system, being brought in, and the UN projections on global warming and the unsustainability of oil. But it seems like a lot of those early predictions have proven wrong. Like I remember the peak oil movement back like 2008 that everyone kind of uses, like, oh, this is why the United States has to get into foreign conflicts. We're kind of doomed. We're not going to be able to produce the food that we need without petrochemicals, and that's going to create a mass famine. But we're seeing, despite the environment going up 1.5 degrees centigrade, and despite all the projections that we're going to reach peak oil, we're pumping more oil than we ever have, and crop yields are higher than they've ever been in human history.
Yeah, I mean just because in the last 10 years that we've been exporting a lot in the United States, I don't think that you're going to see like a 1-to-1 huge spike in global temperatures. I think honestly, like we kind of erroneously focused a little bit too much on CO2 ppm. Like I'm as a biologist, like I'm actually like worried about ecosystems and organisms and mass extinctions that are happening right now, because like I feel like when we get into the world of CO2 ppms, it's kind of like this is going to be bad in the future kind of thing, as opposed to like the reality is that like right now we're actually like destroying like wetlands, for example. Like wetlands are being destroyed right now because of human activity, not because of CO2 ppm. Maybe some of them on the outskirts and some like margins, but yeah, man. I mean, but I think the stat is like 90% of all wetlands that have gone extinct in the last 50 years. So it's just humans want to live near water. So we just destroy mangrove forests, we destroy wetlands near rivers and oceans. So it's just ubiquitous. And I mean, the IPCC reports and stuff are, when they talk about the Paris projections and all that kind of stuff in the last 10 years, you're right that we're on a path that's better than we expected, considering that we really did nothing in the last 10 years. But it's really just because of coal-fired power plants going down, and the ability for solar voltaics have just increased dramatically. So solar voltaics are actually the number one way that people are generating electricity on Earth now, more so than even like coal. So it's just and natural gas. It's a huge like win.
Well, I just want to push back. I know right now the new capacity is primarily solar, but most of the actual capacity, I thought, is still fossil fuel based, with coal being the number one globally.
No, the 2025, it just like installed electric potential. Like this was actually the 2025 Science Mag breakthrough of the year was this specifically. Hey, Brian, how's it going?
I agree on the I guess I'm trying to say I agree with you on the install, but the install is not equal to the legacy infrastructure we've built. Like it's still, if you look at the total grid, it's still primarily fossil fuel. Just the new installs are primarily solar. Like,
no, but the capacity, like the electrical capacity of the of the world right now, we are producing more through solar voltaics than through anything else. Yeah, the 2025 Science Mag has it as the breakthrough of the year. It's a great article. You should check it out. It's because of like the just exponential growth that's been happening specifically in China. I mean, we're talking about like hundreds of billions of dollars in solar voltaics, and there's like specifically going into like plateaus that are like higher in order to get like better efficiencies out of it. So yeah, it's definitely happening. It's awesome.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah, good.
I just want to show you what I'm looking at.
California has tons of solar and growing like crazy. Yeah, wildlife. I mean, all new installs in California have to have solar voltaics on them, which is good, right? I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, solar voltaics are so cheap. I mean, they're comparatively for what they are. I mean, it's electrical generation. It's incredible. They're just so cheap comparatively. You have batteries, you have solar voltaics, that technology dropping in cost, and that's why it's just increasing like mad, which is good. Like, I mean, even if you don't believe that climate change is being caused by humans, like cheaper electricity is still good. You know what I mean? Like that's what's so wild to me is that I don't get it. Yeah, it definitely is, Zeke. Yeah, it is the number one producer. Yeah.
So I just sent you over the International Energy Association for global energy production, and it puts solar at less than 3% of total global energy production on electrical.
Let's see.
Like, I agree with you. Like, in the U.S., solar is number one, but globally, it's like we're still at the point in the U.S. I think solar is less than like 6% of the grid, despite being the number one installed for last year.
Okay, I was okay.
Take like a decade.
Okay, yeah, I was mistaken. I guess it said global installed electricity capacity. So yeah, I guess it is installed then. I thought I read the graph wrong, but yeah, it's yeah. So the solar overtook coal and natural gas last year for installed electricity capacity.
And was that global too?
Yeah, this is global. Global installed electricity capacity, yeah, in gigawatts.
That's awesome. Yeah, I knew the Americans cut over, but it must be that the Chinese install must have been huge last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we had like $400 billion that was going towards this in the United States, but that was all taken from us and used to give tax cuts to billionaires instead. So we were going to have cheaper electricity, guys, and we just don't now. So yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Well, I think what's even more amazing is that solar is now price competitive compared to natural gas, despite the 150% tariff on solar module components from China. So, like, not only have we taken away the subsidies, we're actually tariffing the number one producer at an astronomical amount, and it's still cheaper to build solar. And it's I will say purely from an environmental standard, and also just from a pure economics, it is amazing that solar ended up being the one that's going to win the war. Like, everyone was crying about nuclear, everyone was crying about wind, and it's going to be solar. Who would have thought that was going to be the one that could actually get us across the finish line and beat natural gas?
Yeah,
especially now.
yeah, it's
the Middle East is on fire.
Yeah, let's see if let me try to get this up here. Boom. Actually used to here, boom. And then this browser content here. This. I don't know why. What is the? I don't know why there's a filter or something on it. Weird. Here, boom. It's like dim. Boom. But yeah, you can see like solar, like just like it's a crazy. Like in the last from 2015 to now. I mean, it goes from something that's There you go. Yeah, 2015, it was second to last, and then all of a sudden, just like in the last 10 years. So it's been just a ton of installations. We could have been the leader. could have been the leader on that one. But yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, First Solar is still, I think it's the number 8 producer for solar panel output in terms of total gigawatts that they can produce. And that's all domestic too.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because it runs a totally different technology than the Chinese. And it doesn't really rely on any Chinese imports. And we're starting to see, because of the super high tariff barriers, we're starting to see some major investment by both Chinese and Korean companies to build out solar for the American market.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be, that's awesome. That is very cool. Nuke is still the cleanest energy source. I mean, I think the problem, like for me at least with nuclear, is it's just not renewable. I think that the breeder reactors are really good. They're up to like 95% though. So it's actually pretty cool. I mean, I had a nuclear physicist on here a couple months ago, and we went through all the latest breakthroughs in nuclear, which is crazy. And basically they kind of see it. He was actually an environmental scientist, and was talking about how he can see how, in order to kind of as a patchwork across the US, in order to aid the solar and wind arrays, in order to kind of create those stopgaps and stuff, and to kind of help stuff around, kind of see the small breeder reactors kind of everywhere in the United States, which is, I think, a pretty cool idea.
Oh yeah. Well, here's the other really interesting thing. Because nuclear has such long turnaround times, because of the construction standards, we're looking at about 10 years for Gen 3 reactors. That's probably going to be the reason why it's not going to win, is because you need to make the investment now. Yeah. It's going to take 10 years, and probably in 10 years, the whole grid's going to cut over to solar.
Yeah, so, and the timeline, right, is so high for nuclear. It's a ton of money invested that you have to have. Right, exactly what you're talking about. Like the amount that you have to invest for so long before you can actually reap those rewards. It makes it very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's and also the big thing now. They're trying to make modular nuclear reactors, which are very similar to the designs on nuclear submarines, work, because they have way lower standards in terms of safety because they're tinier. And they use different methods than Gen 3 Westinghouse reactors. But even that is very experimental at this point. We've only seen 2 or 3 actually start getting funded, and they tend to have worse efficiency compared to the massive reactors that take 10 years to build. So it might actually get to the point where the efficiency loss, in order to make them smaller and less safe, or essentially have less safety standards, could make them less price competitive than just solar and battery. And that's kind of the war right now, is if we have a couple more breakthroughs on battery tech, we can just overbuild on the solar to fill up batteries, and it might be even cheaper than the modular reactors.
Oh, interesting. What do you think about the fission stuff? Everything. This is one that's always 10 years away, but it was there was the construction in France, I think that's happening right now. That's
heater reactors.
Yeah, it's nuts, 2 million degrees or something insane. It's we were watching videos on that one. It was amazing.
All right, can I put on my Patriot hat real quick?
Sure, yeah.
Those Europeans don't even have it right. The only ones that get fusion research right are the Americans at the National Ignition Facility.
Okay.
We're going to be the ones that are going to win. If fusion works, it's going to be us, and it's going to be lasers, baby. Screw the ITER reactors.
Okay. Giuliano apparently is knowledgeable on this. I'll bring him in. Yeah, I think
Hey there. How are you guys?
Hey, what's up, man? appreciate
So
it. Go for it.
This is awesome. I opened my app. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I have a background in nuclear engineering and economics.
What's up?
So
perfect. You found your life.
Awesome. Yeah, no, what a fun interaction. Yeah. So I mean, like, when it comes to fusion, right? I think it is a long ways away, right? Let alone the fact that we have cladding issues. We don't know how we're going to have the thermodynamics of it. As Joey mentioned, right? If we talk about inertial confinement, railing instability is something that is non-trivial to solve. We'll likely get there, but it will take a long time. But I think that I would have my hopes up in SMRs and NMRs as we kind of go on. Joey, can you give me a quick glimpse into your idea of what is your concern with these small modular reactors?
Yeah, it's not a safety issue. It's more of an economic issue. We agree that the SMRs don't have the same economies of scale in terms of capital expenditure to electrical output as like Gen 3 reactors.
Yeah, it's a hard question, right? Because like I think what we kind of lead to is we can ponder multiple things, right? We can either say, hey, let's look at legacy, right? We have not built more reactors, and yet we're able to sustain a 20% energy domain just because of our increased efficiency of our reactors and minimize downtime. And that's beautiful, right? We consume way more energy than we did in the past, and yet we're still at 20%. And we have these legacy players being like, hey, why don't we just keep improving, right? New systems, new shuffling programs, optimize cost analysis, creating hydrogen in the long term. And we also have all the guidelines. We know how this works. And then the new players are saying, hey, but we want the AP1000s. We want more energy output. We want to have more isolated reactors. But then goes into the whole core that we have an issue currently, which is, we made a pledge that no one is going to get hurt from nuclear. And nuclear proliferation kind of skyrockets when it comes to the small reactors, but they are very useful in a lot of places. Right? I don't know. It's really it's like a mental puzzle that all of my colleagues debate like every day, and like we try to actively think about this, and it's so complicated.
Yeah, because the batteries aren't like good enough. What is the problem? I guess.
There's two, right? So like, I recommend when you're talking about nuclear, we should split between legacy, right? The established nuclear reactors, and the ones that some countries are building, which are just multi-billion-dollar infrastructure, and these new age, which is going to be smaller reactors that essentially have a smaller blueprint, lower energy output. But allow for you to have a much lower cost and entry into the market. So
CapEx is lower, and it's
exactly that.
Okay.
That's but then nice. It's like, how do you have this conversation, right? Like imagine you are an investor and you say, hey, nuclear is the future. And then you tell them, hey, it might cost $5 billion, $10 billion, $20 billion to build. It might take 10 years, 20 years to build. It gets really murky in these really large nuclear reactors, and that is what TerraPower is doing. That is why their molten salt has been quite helpful. If you want to look into it, so molten salt at least what TerraPower wants to do is vertically integrate their process where they can say, hey, we will build a nuclear reactor for this much, this cost, and this timeline. We can certify that. And that kind of diminishes some of that worry that Joey is mentioning, which is like this CapEx expenditure that gets kind of terrifying. I don't know how else to describe it.
And for me, the other big, I'm just to give you a little bit about what makes me so interested in the industry. I was really interested in potentially going to nuclear engineering at the VC Vogtle plant when I was younger, when I was like an 18-year-old, but I'm 30. And I watched that entire project collapse upon itself and Westinghouse go bankrupt.
Yep.
And it just seared into my mind of like, holy shit, the nuclear renaissance was actually bullshit because we've been talking about it since Bush in 2005 and we haven't been able to deliver. And I understand like the SMRs are like the solution to this issue. But I genuinely think like by the time we see SMRs scale up, you might actually just see solar take over.
Wow, interesting.
And they're going to
So you
drive down
think
market
that?
prices.
Oh, interesting. You think that the battery storage will outweigh that, or will outpace it?
Yeah, I think the efficiency gains on battery storage and solar
Fascinating.
efficiency is faster than the rate of development on the SMRs.
Do you know how the energy market is set prices?
I mean, depends on what grid. I mean, are you saying like at
Well,
the
yeah,
national
right.
grid level? Or?
Most grids, right? We have the five. Let's isolate Texas because they're independent.
Yeah.
They're unregulated. But right, you know that the reverse price set.
Essentially, where you can actually have to end up paying to produce because we're oversupplying the grid.
Yes, and also like when it comes like most markets are a reverse auction, right? Most efficient enters. The last kilowatt is what sets the market price.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like, and like we right, like I'm assuming you have quite a good experience with like the inverse duck curve as well when it comes from solar.
Say it one more time.
The inverse duck curve.
No, please explain it for everyone.
Oh yeah. So solar has this funky thing where we talk about the energy market, and as soon as solar hits, you kind of essentially get a massive supply shock, which causes the price of solar to go negative. So energy prices go negative for a while, which then gets really tough, right? Because we have there's a massive cost, right? There's a cost to shut down every single plant. There's a cost to shut down gas generators. There's a cost to shut down natural gas, coal, nuclear, wind, and you want to be careful, right? What you want to do is be able to somehow predict the market and ensure that you minimize spikes. And I do think that nuclear is a good bet just because you can create a really good base load. I'm like thinking. I'm trying to think about like how would we supply? So you're saying if we create enough battery storage to offset everything.
We can essentially the idea would be that we can actually oversupply the market with solar because costs are going to essentially get so cheap that it's just going to make too much logical sense to build out massive battery storage systems, whether it's like dam batteries or essentially just lithium ion batteries or what. I mean, I've seen also we got some crazy silver technology now with batteries coming out of Japan that we're going to actually start using batteries as the primary energy supplier.
Interesting. I mean, I'll have to I'll build let me do this. I'll follow both of you guys, and I will build a model tomorrow. I'll just run. So I'll build a model, and I'll figure out what it would cost, at least total kilowatts, so we can kind of we can start building a mental picture. Because I think it's tough. I think it's a tough ask to say that we're going to fundamentally flip the current grid. I mean, I know we're talking about long-term transition, but I would be surprised, right? Because especially when you're talking about data centers, right? Nuclear is perfect for that. You put an SMR in there, you have that, you have 24/7 surveillance, you minimize the risk of nuclear proliferation, which would be awesome, right? Because a lot of you'll hear a lot of people in our industry being like, "Yeah, it's a revolution, everything." It's like, yeah, but things are slow, right? We're very careful. We don't want, to go from the tens to the hundreds to the thousands of reactors, and now that is a lot of logistical nightmare that we have to worry about. Also, I think one comment I was talking about salt-based sodium batteries. Sodium batteries are great. They do have less energy density, right? I think it's good importance to remember that. Lower energy density, lower chance of thermal runaway. But Joey, do you know the cost structure for those?
I would say right now, I think I don't think that they're primary. I don't think they're the market leader for US on US installs. I can't tell you what their market share is though. I think that battery tech
super low, right?
now
Because
is
brand new.
flux. Yeah, it's like there's such a flux right now in terms of like who's going to be the winner. But I am going to bet that I think last I checked, like 15% of the new capacity installed is tied to battery technology. Like it's not like an insignificant player at this point.
That makes sense.
And
Do you know if they're? Oh, sorry. Do you know if they're NMC or just LFP?
they're both.
They're both. Okay.
Yeah. And they're mostly, from my understanding, and I'm not going to talk out of my butt. I would have to look at I haven't memorized the stats, but most people are betting on probably like residential lithium ion being the main supplier. You're essentially your Solar City type cells. That seems to be where the capital expenditure is going. But it could change in the next year or so. And I would say the other key thing is that we're entering into a world where the data centers are going off grid. And that's been like the really interesting development, that because of the regulatory environment for an energy market, a lot of these data centers are probably going to just say, actually, I'm not going to even tie into the grid, because they want to build faster than the grid will allow them to come online. And they don't want to deal with all the regulations of the local grids.
Also, at the end of the day, right, like we're talking about putting a $100 million dual cycle natural gas turbine is a rounding error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's crazier too is that assuming that the energy demand is truly there in terms of the data centers, this might sound totally off the rocker, but right now the Silicon Valley types are actually genuinely pricing in, not even going in the US, but actually going space-based solar. It's pretty insane. Like
Yeah,
that
I
is
heard about this.
ethos.
Yeah, what is this? Can you guys? I want to hear about this.
So, okay, I know you're going to think I'm a nut job here, but this is unironically what people are speculating about in the future energy markets, that they don't want to expand out the US grid too much, because potentially they're just going to put solar panels into space and then deploy the data centers in space. That way they don't even have to worry about connecting to any sort of grid.
Dude, no shot. No shot.
I saw it on there's
No
an
shot.
MIT news article or something that I was reading about this. Yeah.
No shot. Guys. Okay, wait, let's just do some mental math here. Okay, so you can't do evaporation. So you're only gonna do radiant thermal cooling. That's like what, 50 times less efficient than using a fins. So let's assume that you take you have a 100. So you're talking about 100 kilowatt hour system. And let's do a gigawatt. Let's do a gigawatt power plant, which is data centers. That's the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we need 50 times the cooling power, which means that we need to, for 50 times the cooling power for something that is half as efficient, so we're talking about 100 times the area space. I mean, like you can't build fast enough. You can't. There's no shot, because you're gonna need so much space. You need like a football field in space to cool it.
You know what's really cool though?
Tell me.
You can totally redo the solar cells if they're space-based, because you don't have to worry about weather conditions. So essentially, you can reduce the weight by about a fifth of what they are on Earth on terrestrial panels.
Okay.
And you're also in the vacuum of space.
Yeah.
But that's my concern. It's the energy exchange.
Yeah, there is none. So they have to do. I thought that it was all like hydrothermal, right? Because of that, right? That's how, because the vacuum, it's like insulating, right?
Yeah, but it would be radiant. It would be radiant thermal cooling. Like I'm just trying to build a mental picture. But then we all talk about we have like if we talk about Meta and Oracle, right? They're both scared that data centers are going to be outpaced in 4 years. That's why they don't want to invest, because 4 years from now the chips are going to be 5 times worse than they are from the future, right? So every day these chips are getting better and better. So now you put something into space, you spend 50 times, 100 times more, and then these data centers are going to be obsolete in like half a day because you can't service them.
Yeah.
Well, you want to know what the solution is?
Tell me.
They're actually creating a spot market for compute.
Oh my god, this is okay. Okay, like I need to. This is crazy. Like I have friends in like in the space market, and like sometimes they talk to me, and I'm like, did anyone run the math? I'm just concerned. Like this is concerning. Like maybe like Joey, if you can send me some papers on this, I would love it. This is. Like as it currently stands, it sounds like I don't know, an impossible achievement.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'll send you as much as I can.
Oh yeah, please.
And
No stress. I mean, like,
say,
I'm intrigued.
so I would say that this is like in the realm of like fusion research. So we have done the proof of concept. I think you've seen we have had a successful proof of concept where we have launched ships into space, and the error rates are sufficient. We've hardened them for error correction because of the radiation.
Yep.
And we have been able to create the first module that is solar paneled, can cool, and can run compute, and can send the data back. Mm-hmm. So now it's just a matter of scaling. And the key thing right now is the payload cost. So one of the key presuppositions for this research is that we can continue to have an exponential collapse in cost per kilogram into space for low Earth orbit.
May I ask how that would be possible?
Sure. Starship. So have you been following the Starship development?
Yeah, the one that couldn't even send a banana into space?
No. Starship has had
the payload was 0.
No, not Starship.
Dude, this payload was 0 in Starship. They couldn't. You look at the video. Look at the video where they put a banana and like the heat shielding is it burning up. You can see the heat shieldings burn through.
So, okay, one thing to really stress here: the Starship is the super heavy design that is theoretically going to be able to go to the moon and is supposed to be reusable. Mm-hmm. And they're only talking about essentially they're trying to get the cost down to $100 million per launch. That's the end goal. Now, it hasn't been proven quite yet, but essentially, if this is successful and if this design works, we haven't actually left Earth's orbit yet. You know, they've only they haven't even entered Earth's orbit. It's still low Earth orbit. Mm-hmm. We've had 13 tests so far. I believe only 3 of them were unsuccessful. The next step would be to enter Earth's orbit, and then the next step from there would be to do a moon landing.
I mean, look, I'll give you my perspective from what I've read. From what I recall, it's been at least like a year, but the payload that they were able to go and get into space was like 1 banana. And if someone did the math of just evaporative cooling, it would have taken like 16 refuelings to get to the moon.
Wow.
So this is where my concern is. Like, hey, if there's more information, I would gladly read it. But like from that whole atmosphere of the Falcon Heavy and all that BS, I have not seen a single promising thing.
No, but that's the thing. It's not the Falcon Heavy. That's all I'm trying to communicate.
It's the funky looking one, right? It's like the one that looks like a tin can.
I would say it doesn't. I guess you could say it looks like a tin can. Are you
working at SpaceX? I don't mean to dog on you if you do. No,
no, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm only on the investor side, so it's not my personal. It's not my personal like like I agree with you. Like it could not work. Like let's be very real here. This is a very ambitious design that not even NASA is willing to do because like we're still running like. With the Artemis launch, we're still running like SLS at $1 billion a pop that are not reusable. So
exactly. And like so from an investor side, right? Like, do you think has any of the reusability been effective?
Oh, brother, I don't think people understand. SpaceX now controls 95% of the launch payload based off the designs.
Wow.
I mean, but let's be frank. That's because. A lot of the things was their satellite, their connectivity satellite. What's that called?
Starlink.
Thank you. Right? Isn't that because like that's the majority of their payload? It's just Starlink. I know, like my friends sent with Varda, they sent a few capsules up for microgravity, creating biosynthesis, which is very interesting.
That's cool.
But
Let's just say Department of War is actually more of the revenue.
wait, what are they sending up there?
Space Force satellites?
The shut your mouth. Here's the contract. Take the payload up and don't ask questions.
The usual, right? The usual.
Yeah, it's like we're at the point now where essentially SpaceX has proven their economics that the Department of War would rather just pay SpaceX than to have NASA carry the payload.
But isn't that because they kind of pushed them out?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say is that like.
But are they cheaper?
Try a tenth of what NASA charges.
Jeez.
Is the current spot price per payload.
Really? I thought that we were charging them what Russia used to charge the US.
That's the whole thing, is that SpaceX is doing it so cheap that it's actually a bit of a national scandal that NASA is winning the bids for some of the DOW applications.
Do you know the ratio and where I can read that? Let me write that down.
Yeah. If you're interested, look up space cargo market share.
Okay, let me
You'll
do
see
that.
essentially, and you'll see like over time, SpaceX went from like 1%, and now they're at 95% of global space payload.
And you're saying that they're at a net positive revenue.
Are you saying revenue or profit?
So net positive profit.
Okay, so this is where it gets a little weird. Based off the IPO, we're going to start to see some gap checked financials because
like currently it's what, like 137 time multiple?
No, SpaceX isn't public yet.
No, but at the evaluation of $2 trillion.
Well, that's the whole thing, is we don't know what the financials are going to come at once they go public. They haven't actually released a gap compliant financials yet.
Okay. Because I remember looking at it, and it was like they want to run an evaluation just under Amazon, and what Amazon makes in a week is what SpaceX makes in a year.
Yeah. Well, again, this is where it gets even weirder.
Go for it.
They're going to be merging XAI with the SpaceX. So, and here's even the crazier part. The speculation is that as part of the IPO, they're then going to merge with Tesla. So it's going to become. No, I swear. Look it up. It's pretty. This is just from last week.
He's daisy chaining his Twitter buy because that's where the XAI owns it now.
Yes,
or so
Twitter,
now. Yeah. So he's just. So now we're buying it. We're basically buying it.
And what's crazier is that once they merge Tesla with XAI, then the entire robotic supply chain is then going to be unified together. And on top of that, they're going to be launching Terafab, which is their entry into competing with TSMC. So you're going to have a combined conglomerate that has chip fab, space launch, robotics, self-driving cars, social media, and a frontier model lab, all into one Mega-Corp. So it's going to be hard to see like how to break down the revenue and profits by the individual lines and like who's subsidizing who. And,
Exciting.
Okay, I think I can hear you guys again. Sorry, for some reason you guys cut out on my end here.
Oh, he was talking
Apologies.
about like, the Mega-Corp of like, and that's a really good point of like how like Tesla, Twitter, SpaceX, XAI all coming together like under one banner would be very wild.
Under one consolidated financial.
Yeah,
it would be. It's so messy. It's so messy. Like Tesla has what, like 150,000 employees. XAI probably has what, like maybe 100. What's SpaceX at? Probably like a few thousand around there.
I don't know.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's a lot more than a few thousand because I think they're at the point where they're doing a launch every day at this point.
They are? What? Really? Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think SpaceX is on par
365 launches a year?
Yeah. Last I checked, they're running that thing daily, and they want to get to the point where they're doing about 10 a day.
Jeez.
Who the hell is going to pay? Who for what? What are they sending there?
What are they doing right now? Like that's making up so much of like the payload. Like, I mean, are they just delivering satellites? Or are they going? They're not going to the
Department
ISS.
of War.
Right? Oh, okay.
Department of War, ISS. Yeah, they did actually win some ISS refueling contracts.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if you remember that whole controversy last year where Boeing's launcher failed, and then we had the astronauts stranded.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But because it was the Biden admin, they didn't want to give the contract to Elon. So they just left the guys up there for like way longer than, I think it was like one of the longest recorded space times up in space, because they were just stuck there because Boeing couldn't deliver on the launcher. And they're getting contracts for Artemis 3. That's another fun one.
For Artemis 3, okay. Yeah, it's like I thought they had the contract, and they didn't have the contract, and then they couldn't deliver on what they said they were going to do. I don't know. I have a concern with these hyper inspirational and these hyper idealized worlds where we would have been already at Mars. We would have we're gonna have the Roadster, which is gonna have rockets, and we're gonna have robots, and everyone's gonna buy a $50,000 maid. It's like, I don't know. It concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. What was Elon's evaluation of Tesla once those like the maids come? It's like a $10 trillion company that he was like,
not more.
You're like, what? Like it was just, yeah. Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about Neuralink. He's in our brains. He's trying to get into our brains too. So there you go. Oh my gosh.
Well, here's what's even crazier. They've just begun construction on the Terafab. So
what is the Terafab? What is that?
So he's literally trying to take down TSMC. So he just committed to a $50 billion build out to compete with TSMC to produce chips in Texas.
Good luck, man. Didn't Samsung try that and failed?
No, they actually do create chips.
Oh, okay. I thought they couldn't do the ones that were made by that Denmark engineering company.
Oh, ASML? So ASML
is
ASML is a supplier to TSMC.
Gotcha. So
most likely the Terafab will still rely on ASML for the ultraviolet. I'm messing up, but the
lithography, something like that.
Yes,
whatever.
Ultraviolet lithography machines are still going to be probably ASML, but they're also trying to pitch to create an ASML competitor. But that's also, if they can do that, that would totally change global politics.
I would agree with you there. I do think that we need more market players in the chip manufacturing.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'll need to send it. I'm assuming my friend does chip manufacturing. Yeah, I think he's finishing his PhD right now. How much is he paying for chip developers? Do you know?
Are you saying like salary?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be totally frank here. $1 million contracts are very common right now.
No, that's why I'm saying it. Like, I just want to know if he's actually being a bit player or not. Like,
it's
okay. Like, because if he actually wants to bill us out, he needs to be, minimum base salary $350. Yeah. For him to be able to get these to steal all the people to get into Terafab.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is that part of the reason for the IPO is to raise the $50 billion cash required to actually build out the fab.
Fascinating. Okay, so this IPO, so the SpaceX IPO, which is connected with give me a second, XAI and potentially Tesla, is there to generate enough free cash to be able to start Terafab, which is going to be back into SpaceX / whatever this new melting pot is going to be.
Yeah, to essentially create chips to then start carrying data center payloads to low Earth orbit.
So these are all aspirations. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's not aspirational.
Mm-hmm.
We've done the proof of concept, and that's what's now getting the investor money behind it. They've done a successful startup that was not SpaceX and not TerraFab.
Okay.
So they did the first proofs of concept, I believe, 5 months ago.
Sure.
And it beat expectations, and now they're trying to scale it. Now we're at the scale phase. We're not at the proof of concept phase.
Where did you read that from?
Let me get you the name of the company. Give me one second.
Super.
Interesting.
I don't know. This is where it's super interesting. It gets a little concerning, right? It's like I'm more worried about profitability here, right? It's like at the end of the day, these companies have to make profit somewhere. Capital goes around when there's capital, but as soon as investors starts getting a little bit more stingy,
very very techie name. It's called StarCloud.
Nice.
StarCloud. Okay.
Also funded by Nvidia. So that's the other. So sorry to be this guy, but we're now also in this kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy, where the more the Nvidia valuation goes up and they raise more capital, they're then using the money to just like bet on massive moonshots in order to get people to buy more Nvidia chips. So that's why they're trying to create a competitor to StarCloud, because they don't want to be running Nvidia chips in space. They want to build their own chips that are space hardened.
Interesting.
So StarCloud is a validation phase from Nvidia to put chips into space that are able to survive higher radiation loads high radiation loads, degradation, and cooling.
Yep.
Echo. And
solar powered.
And yeah, of course. And so why, I don't know, like, have you ever heard of Mothra?
History.
Okay, so Mothra is like a big thing that like I am a little bit more. I love tech. I love this stuff. At the end of the day, I think that it comes down to the technology behind it, and I have a lot more faith in optimization and increasing efficiency. So there's new. I think there's a study. Oh gosh, what university was it? I think it was the University of Michigan. Yes, yeah, it was the University of Michigan. I was at a talk and. This person was presenting, and it's a new chip hardware. So we're currently what we're trying to accomplish is to minimize the cost burden and computational power plus computational heat. We want to generate new chip designs that are better suited for LLM strategies and better suited for actual neural network development. And that is where I feel like the value would come through, right? Because we're talking about these kind of like crazy things. So like we're now to the point where like, yeah, there's a total logic train that we need to invest in a company that is investing in another company to develop space chips that is based on one company that to send more payloads into space to have enough profit sharing so that they can keep going and send more more chips into space and then create a new market. When a lot of times it could be a lot easier for us to have more efficient chips built on Earth and, build out infrastructure on Earth, on the ground, better optimization, quicker downtime, be able to upkeep everything, where I feel like we can generate a lot more efficiency and a lot more, long-term profitability if we just kind of harp down and just think through what is the logical the bottlenecks that we have in our current system. I love
people
it.
doing that like with like iron and all that kind of stuff, the renewable like data center, like the build outs, like with basically the change going from like these Bitcoin miners to AI like infrastructure plays.
100%. Like my friend told me about IRA, and I gave him like, "Hey," it was like, "Can you just invest?" I have a pool with my friends. Like we all have different sectors, so we just kind of share a pool of money. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and we all try to specialize. And I think I told him, I was like, "Yeah, you can play around with this." And he said we made a lot of money. Do you know what IRA is at?
It's down. It's down in the last like 6 months, but so is everyone.
I mean, that's
yeah.
because of Bitcoin, but like,
Yeah. But
he was telling me,
I'm long iron. I can tell you that.
I'm happy because he told me I should be long in iron, and I trusted him.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So what is your background? Also, is it Greg?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I'm a molecular biologist, so I do like changing genomes inside of organisms and like science-based stuff like that. Like, so yeah, I've been a research scientist for like 17 years.
Oh, that is awesome. My partner's dad, he is a cell biologist.
Oh, nice.
And it's super interesting because it's a whole different side, and it's always fun to understand how he explains to me of gene expression when you have ocular nerve damage, and how this and he was like, yeah, we create a whole new system to try to understand the patterns of gene expression on each individual cell level. It's like, oh my god, it's so beautiful. It's so cool. Beautiful.
It's weird. I got my PhD in like 2023, and I felt awesome. Like I'm like kind of like old school because I was like it was just as LLMs were kind of like going through. I mean, I talk about it a lot, like, but neural networks and deep learning and all these kind of like AI stuff has been around in science for like 10 years, if not more. But these like ChatGPT overlay kind of stuff like started coming through, and I felt like I was like, dang man, like my PhD is like old school. I'm like working with actual things that exist in the world that like So it's been wild. I've been trying to mess around with like OpenClaw and more like AI stuff, like trying to develop and try to actually get into that world the last couple of months. So that's been fun.
Do you think that we're going to have... Oh, sorry, Jerry, go for it.
I was saying, remember, our genome is just our source code, and we're going to turn it into source code, and we're just going to mutate the hell out of it, and we're going to do forced evolution, brother.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. I mean, I actually use like open source software as kind of like an analogy for like how bacteria kind of like evolve, because they can do like horizontal gene transfer, and they can pick up basically things from the environment. So it's a lot like downloading or repo from GitHub or something, where it's just you just run it on your system and you can there it is. So it's really cool. It is it's been really fun. I'm excited. Like I do think that there is a lot of opportunity with AI to actually like use it to like solve problems. I don't think that it's all negative, but So I actually made like used it in order to make an app in order to basically call and email people that are representatives in the United States. So you just basically put your address in, scienceandfreedom.com. You can just go there, and basically it'll give you kind of like a walkthrough automation thing. So it was cool using Opus and vibe coding that thing for like 2 weeks trying to get it all working. And yeah, it's fun to like have like projects now that I can kind of like work on and kind of like learn how to develop this stuff.
Yeah. And we're getting to the point too where we can essentially 3D print special genomes. Like we can literally just like take a random genome and just print it.
Yeah, we've done a synthetic chromosome in yeast. We've done where they created a whole cloth like complete, and then they also did like a chlamydomonas chloroplast genome. So that's a chloroplast is a plastid, just like a mitochondria. It's a endosymbiosis event. So that's kind of interesting. It has its own genome, but it's smaller. There's been several like synthetic biology projects to try to have like a minimal organism. So kind of removing that biological black box. So that'll be interesting, man. I think it is really cool. I mean, especially with next generation sequencing, which is basically sequencing organisms at the population level, the entire community of microbes being sequenced at once, as opposed to just like one organism at a time. And basically that allows us, I mean, like millions and millions of pieces of short little strands of DNA using computer science. You can stitch them together and kind of like build out the entire genome just from these little fragments. It's pretty amazing. It's really cool.
And aren't we down to $1,000 to sequence the entire human genome?
Yeah, we hit that. Yeah, we did. Yeah, that is the thing. Yeah, there's so many cool things that are happening, especially so like David R. Liu is a researcher out of Harvard. It's incredible. They're with gene therapy. They're actually with a single administration solving genetic diseases. Just like a kid had childhood leukemia. She had 2 years to live, and with a single administration of this specially concocted, to her sequence exactly, single administration, within 6 months she was completely in remission, and she's been cancer free for 2 years. So wow. It's been wild. Yeah, it's a directed evolve CRISPR that he made specifically to edit human genomes. It's very cool.
So I was talking to him about I read the news. It was like something about the guy made a vaccine to help his dog minimize his tumors.
Oh yeah,
did you read that? So and he said his name is Roman Geiger. You can probably see it. He has he's pretty relevant. I don't know if you're in the same sector or not, but he mentions like, it's not statistically relevant yet, right? It's like, it was cool that it happened, but are we able to definitively say that would be something that could be repeated on multiple occasions? What's your gut reaction?
I mean, it's what he did wasn't like that remarkable in the fact that like we have all the technology and all the tools now. It's just like what was remarkable was just his ability to get it kind of like done on a timeline and have it funded and getting it done fast enough that it could actually make a big difference. So, so basically, you sequence your genome. You sequence the cancer cells to see what those exact cancer cells are, the sequences, and then you basically need to find a way in order to attach anti-cancer medications to those cells. So you can either train your immune system to now attack those cancer cells. So that's one way of going about it. You can go about it a second way. You could invade those specific cells. So you could figure out like what the, based off of, basically like flags that are kind of like flown outside of the cell. You could figure out what it is and then attach and invade that cell specifically, and then create kind of like a kill switch inside of that cell that kills it. So there's a couple different ways of like doing it. People it really matters. It matters whether or not there's a couple of different ones there. One of them actually, a really good thing to decide which cell to infect is a virus. So one of the ways that they also do it is it's called an AAV, an adeno-associated virus. So it's basically a virus that has been told to specifically target this particular cancer cell. So that's one way that they do it. It's very cool, man. There's dozens and dozens of human trials that are happening all around the world on this specifically too. So it's happening.
So it wasn't so the impressive part is the accuracy and how quickly it was able to go from concept to something that was able to do its purpose. But
it's the regulatory framework, like the regulations that he got, like kind of like went through like quick. Apparently it was like Australia or something like that. He had to like push through in order to like have that greenlit. But the sequencing, like once you have the sequence, it's not that big of a deal to. It's not that hard to make the CRISPR. Actually, that's not the hard part. That's really like testing and validating it. For example, so David R. Liu, in order to do the childhood leukemia thing, they had to create a whole new mouse line that was basically per sequence of the cells inside of those mice. So they had to create a whole new mouse line in order to validate it. So that was wild. Like there was a seminar that he was talking about it. And it was just incredible work by those researchers to sequence, to validate through mouse models, to and then deliver it within a year. It was wild. So it was really cool.
And economically, that's the other key thing, is that it's no longer just like, let's put $1 billion into it. My understanding is that they were able to do this treatment for about $1 million. So.
Yeah, it's the labor.
Really?
It's the labor about it. I mean, because of like CRISPR is so interesting how quickly and easily you can create the tool. So, like I can, like when I was working with CRISPR, I would like right now, 10:30 at night, I could put an order in for some primers, which are, basically the DNA blocks that I would need in order to change the target of the CRISPR. And then tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., they're on my desk, and I just put those right into the CRISPR within a couple hours, and then by the end of the day I'm already like using them. So it's pretty easy to do the molecular biology now. That's like not the hard part. It's really like validating, making sure that there's no off target, like things that you don't want to happen, that kind of thing.
Okay, so how far do you think we are from essentially in the case of an animal, right? Like how long do you think validation phase takes usually? Or for you to be comfortable, let's say that your pet has a terminal illness, and you're able to sequence your pet plus send in your primer. How long and what validation phases would you need for you to be like, yeah, that's worth it to put on my pet?
I mean, it matters if you need to make the cell line or not. I mean, I don't think that he did. I don't think that he did the cell line, for this guy with his dog. It was probably just like an ethics panel trying to like okay and green light it. I mean, the sequencing would take like in the biopsy would take like maybe a month. The creation of the tool, 2 weeks. And then administration, like I would say like the whole thing, you could get it done in less than 6 months pretty easily.
So why not open a business with that? That seems pretty easy.
It's the regulations, right? It's like the fact that like you have to have a green light, and you have to have like FDA approval on the thing. So that's actually the tough part. So what's interesting though is that David R. Liu's last one. So this was, he's already, in my opinion, probably going to get like probably at least one Nobel Prize. But this one was pretty interesting. He basically, so right now all these medicines have to be bespoke. So basically they have to sequence your genome, and then they have to make and tailor your exact sequence to the exact medicine, and that's kind of like part of the problem. Well, he figured out a way. It's a molecular biology thing. It's basically like a stop codon thing, but it's hard to explain like quickly. But basically, he created a sequence agnostic ability for these tools to be used on multiple different diseases. So the idea being that you could actually have one tool that would work for 100 different diseases. So you wouldn't have to go every single time for like a bunch of federal regulations in order to greenlight these things. So that was like mind blowing. I couldn't believe that he did that. That was in December last year, so we're still yet to see that. But if when that goes through, that's going to be shocking, man. That's going to be incredible. Basically, you're going to get your genome sequence, and if you already have that tool, it's already FDA approved. It'd just be like getting a shot from the physician. It'd be very easy.
Do you know what the paper was called?
David R. Liu, I think it was disease sequence agnostic prime editing. Something like
Super
that.
Cool. Super cool.
Yeah, it's called prime editing. I mean, the big difference is like basically the CRISPR-Cas9 that he uses is evolved to do basically not the default, which is hey, Sheepadoodle, thank you, man. The regular CRISPR-Cas9 is basically a double-stranded break. So it just basically like molecular scissors and just chops it. This that he evolved specifically basically goes in and edits. So like an A to a C, a G to a T or something like that, like changes individual sequences. So you have way less off targets. So you're way less likely to have any bad mutations where you're not supposed to, you don't want them. And yeah, he did it, man. Like he doesn't get any off targets. It's pretty remarkable, actually. Like they sequence before and after just to make sure, do due diligence to make sure that there weren't any off target mutations, and they don't get any. It's honestly incredible. He did such a good job.
And when you say, isn't it amazing just from like a regulatory perspective that we went from locking up the scientists who were doing genetic modification on human subjects to now getting FDA approval?
Well, the Chinese guy was reckless, though. I mean, that was the thing, is that it was reckless, and it was like using the native Cas9 that is like that did have a lot of off targets, and basically he was trying to make them immune to HIV infection by knocking out the region of the genome that the HIV integrates into. So it was reckless, I feel like. So that was kind of, that makes sense. I mean, how we regulate human gene editing in the United States right now, like there is no ban on human gene editing. Oh, thank you, Ness. That's very nice of you. Thank you. There is no ban. So,
wow.
No, but every mutation, every like new medicine has to be approved. So it has to be separately like gone through. So that is the thing. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying is we're now at the point where we're not approving medicines, we're approving techniques.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I do think that the Chinese scientist was like getting. I mean, that I feel like that was reckless, like what he did, and he did it without any help from the international community. He basically said like, hey, this is what I did, and China wasn't okay with it. International community was like, whoa, that was really dangerous.
But I'm saying like we've essentially been able to shift the public persona. Like, do you remember like back in the 90s when everyone was freaking out about CRISPR with like Gattaca, and there was this big like social push to like stigmatize this research? And now we're just at the point where like, oh yeah, we're openly talking about modifying our genome.
Yeah, because I think the difference is like it's because the difference is that we have the delivery mechanism and basically the vehicles now in order to deliver these molecular biology tools into adults that are already here, and we're actually like helping to solve diseases for humans that exist right now and improve their quality of life directly. So like there's like CRISPR treatments now in order to help like with high cholesterol and stuff. Like there's new papers that are coming out that are doing stuff like that, where they're like improving liver functions and stuff like that, which is just really cool. All you're doing is improving quality of life for someone, and you're not talking about like the positive eugenics stuff that kind of gets a little murky, like ethically, right? But you can do that, and you can do that stuff too. And so for negative eugenics, he actually did remove one kiddo's like heritable disease. It was like they were actually born last year. It was the first human that had their genome edited to remove disease in order to improve their quality of life. It's very cool. It's very, very cool.
Was that an IVF baby?
Yeah. It has to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what I was just about to ask. I was like, at what stage do you kind of implement that technique?
Yeah, it's very like I think it's. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I think it's like I would have to say it's like a blastocyst, or really, really low, like really small amount of cells. But yeah.
Can I just say too? We literally did it. We literally created a synthetic human. Ooh. I know you're going to reject the idea of synthetic, but we literally did the clone army thing from Star Wars
by changing the genome. By changing the genome of that kiddo.
Yeah, we literally crossed over into that world, and we now have a synthetic, biological human walking around, breathing, and
yeah,
it's here.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cute kid too. It's great for shots. It was there's been a lot of like debate, and people like ask me about like human gene editing and stuff for about it, and it's like, and the debate's always, it's interesting. It's always like into the Gattaca thing. Like, is it okay that we, to choose your baby and that kind of thing? And it's like, no, that is one area of human gene editing, but like the other one is just like improving quality of life. Gene editing the cancer cells, gene editing someone's disease that they have right now. So it's like tangible. It's like it's happening. Like people's quality of life is improving. So it's not it's not theoretical.
I know, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like we've gone from like making this into like some sort of abstract, philosophical question of, oh, this could happen, to buckle up, buckaroos. We just did it and we proved it and we crushed all other biological, pharmacological solutions. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. The progress will continue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know why people are in chat are trying to say it's trolling. Here's the baby. Here's literally the baby that got the first human guy that got their genome changed. This year, the baby boy with the life-threatening metabolic condition became the world's first patient to receive personalized gene therapy, gene editing treatment. This feat could pave the way for gene editors tailored to people with unique or ultra-rare mutations. Let me try to like bring this into the. I can't see it. Whatever. Let's see. KJ Muldoon was born last year in Philadelphia with defects in a gene called CPS1 and encodes an enzyme that livers needs to detoxify ammonia to avoid a harmful buildup of the compound at the blood and brain. Babies with this type of disease must go to strict protein-limited diets. Okay. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Soon after KJ's birth. I'm sorry. So it was a baby that just after birth. My apologies.
Wow. Okay, so this was after birth.
Yeah. So after birth, researchers raced to develop a base editor that could fix the single spelling mistake in the faculty gene. After testing the bespoke base editor in cells and labs, the team won approval to treat KJ. Then 6 months old, using an infusion of the lipid nanoparticles to deliver the genetic instructions to for the base editor. So that's the other thing, which is really cool. They're using the same thing that they're using for the mRNA vaccines, which is the mRNA with the lipid nanoparticle delivery. It's like it's a great way to deliver the tools that we need. So yeah, it's cool, man. It's not just for vaccines. It's being used for cancer treatments since like 2015, and now this too.
That is super cool. Now I have a question. You might be able to tell. So we can think about if you have a share of the population that gets a vaccine, you can create herd immunity. Mm-hmm. Is there an equivalent when it comes to genes, and maybe there is a subgroup that is more prone to some disease? Is there like a threshold limit that if you were to systematically improve or minimize these type of gene expressions that have some negative correlation with life expectancy in the population? Is there a threshold number of percentage that can, you don't need to edit everyone, where you just do a supplemental subset of the population where long term that we'll see that gene expression subdued in future generations? Is there a way to even calculate that, or?
I think that they're not going. I think they're going specifically on. Here's the paper. If you wanted to, someone in chat's asking. This is the specific in vivo gene editing to treat a rare disease. But that's a gnarly title, dude. That's awesome. Specific in vivo gene editing to treat a rare disease. It's New England Journal of Medicine, so it's not just like some random journal. It's the. Oh yeah. I don't think that they want to. Ness. I don't think. they're really going for like the single mutation stuff with the most amount of bang for their buck in terms of like people that have the disease. I think that's kind of like where they're going right now. So that I think that's the main like focus right now. And then try to like build out that thing because if you think about it, like let's say you have like an error in a protein or something that's causing this, if you have multiple locations in your genome of that, which happens a lot, right? You're very rare. You don't just have like a single gene, a single protein. If you think about all the different combinations of the protein that could cause that error at each location, now it's like it just ramps up significantly, right? Because it's not just like a single change. It could be ACTs or Gs in each of those locations, and then each of those locations are going to have a different genome, like a different sequence for the surrounding area too. And you need to make that specific in order to land the plane and land the genetic tools there. So it's like it compounds magnificently. So they're going for like the really rare mutations that have those like single mutations that they can actually like change.
And my understanding too is that we're at the point where we will start doing random mutations and then just try to see like, oh, did this make the cell closer to what we're trying to optimize for? And that's where the next technique of essentially using computer-based simulations to direct us on like if the next generation of the cell is better or weaker at the specific goal we're optimizing for, and then mutating off that instead of just the simple, oh, let's change one little sequence for one very specific genetic disease for some of the more advanced genetic treatments.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff it happens kind of at the cell level, to see kind of like developmental biology, to see like what changes when you the cascade of different types of cells and that are changed because of that. And it's tough. I mean, it's very hard to do that research in humans. Like that you're going to be at mouse models and that kind of this stuff for a really long time. Just in general. But the problem with AI is like the AI, I think, got the Nobel Prize a little early, in my opinion, for the drug discoveries. I mean, so it's cool. Like AlphaFold is a huge thing and a huge leap forward, and it's good, right? But the problem is that it generates hypotheses that need to be tested, and they still need to be tested. So, and I feel like a lot of people erroneously kind of think that like, oh, okay, this like protein thing has been shown on AlphaFold, so now we can just like make a medicine out of that, and it's just not the case, right? You have to do your due diligence. You have to start at the human cell tissue culture, you have to do the mouse models, you have to do another model usually, and then you can do it in the humans. That's kind of like that's what we've been doing to do all the scientific due diligence in order to make sure that the human trials are as safe as possible. The problem is that the mouse models and the animal models, because of this administration, are actually being pushed out, and people they're saying we don't have money for that anymore. We're only going to use like these AI generated medicines from human tissue culture to humans. I don't know. They're banning chimpanzees, they're banning apes, they're banning different types of animal models. So it's like all that's doing, in my opinion, is making the human trials more dangerous.
Riskier.
Yeah, way riskier. Yeah, exactly. Because the off targets and stuff, we don't know.
But isn't that the beauty? Is that because we've now opened it up where bespoke medicine doesn't need to go through rigorous FDA trials, we're going to be able to take people with like very severe genetic diseases, create completely bespoke treatments, and then just go from there and not have to worry about human trials because it's a bespoke treatment.
But even those bespoke like the diseases and treatments, like for that kid, they had to create the model that had those mutations inside of them, and then just to make sure that it still worked, and then do it, the next level. So there is a way to make, basically what you do is for the pathway that you're looking at, you basically put the human version of the proteins into the mouse, so that the human so basically the liver cells or whatever that you're trying to change. Let's say you're trying to change something in the liver. Now you have like human liver tissue actually being created inside of a mouse, and then seeing how it actually happens and how it works.
Yeah, the Frankenstein mouses.
Yeah. So that's how we're doing that. We do that with pigs. Pigs happen, all the time with that. The different like animal models are really good for different organ systems, basically, and they have there's dozens of them for specific stuff.
But haven't we literally been growing organs inside of like mouses and pigs for a while now?
Yeah.
Like we'll implant a heart, kill the pig, and then put it back into a human.
Yep. Yeah. Pigs are like the number one that people use, and that's actually George Church's. He's a brilliant scientist out of Harvard. He's been doing awesome work. He's one of the original people that really popularized CRISPR, and one of his companies is doing this, specifically putting in organ like humanized organs inside of pigs. But not full like organs like but yeah, a lot of some for some of them, yeah, I mean it matters, but yeah.
Why are we using pigs? Is it just like I'm assuming, right, because you have to denature the cells and then repump it with the blood of the host. Is there a reason why we use pigs? Is it like the size of the organ? Is it any specific traits that they have?
I'm not 100% sure. I would think that it would be some of those, like the genetic, just honestly, the ability, how genetically amenable that they are. That is like a big thing. And then to the like the size of the organ, I would think would be something for sure.
Because you denature them, right? That's that's the process. You grow the organ, then you fully evacuate all of the blood cells from the animal, then you reinfuse it with human blood cells of the host that you want to put in.
I would think so, yeah. And you have to do a lot of like
so otherwise you have
like purging of like antigens, basically, then that the cells of the pig aren't detected as like foreign as in the new body. So that
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is the next step, right? Like, I like the way that you're explaining it to me, right? We have a validation phase of AlphaFold. Do you think we're going to see within the next 10 years a full sustained autonomous, like a container box that is just doing trial systems nonstop with robots, or we encode the entire human body and all of its mechanisms into a computer chip and we validate that through that? What do you think is more likely within 10 years?
The first one, that you actually automate like a lot of the lab functions. Yeah, because I mean, we've already done that. And a lot of the pipeline already is kind of automated with robots and stuff like that. So it's really just connecting the robots together and into like one like giant, like automation pipeline. And that's something that I worked on, previously with my host strain engineering, basically making new yeast, strains. That's where awesome. A lot of it was automated, as much of it as I could. And then, I was basically, shuttling stuff between the robots, but theoretically, if all the robots were there, that you could just have one mega robot that just kind of like puts the plate. And we did that. We had one of those like the car maker like arms, this
that's what I'm working on right now for his lab.
Yeah.
We want to automate that. That is so cool. That's awesome.
So it's just like I mean, the best way to put things into robots is actually just another robot. So it actually reminds me of like OpenClaw. It's like an agent spying out your PCR sub agent, and now I'm going to go over to my PCR plate and
so cool.
So that
lights out science factories.
Exactly.
No humans required, no light, and we're just going to be able to scale it up to be massive warehouses.
Yeah. I think that's way more feasible. Like having humans in a chip or something is much harder because we are a collection of so many different types of cells, hormonal sequencing, hormonal signaling. The pathways are complicated, man. They're complicated. Humans, mammals are just a lot of different types of cells. Having that all this spatially, like on a chip or something, like or even uploaded into an AI, and it kind of like thinking about all of those interactions. I mean, I'm very, 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 very skeptical about that.
Have you guys seen the
AI? Oh, sorry, go for it. Sorry, Joey.
Have you seen the fly simulation?
Yeah.
For the fly neurons?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so this is going to cause the really annoying conversation of like simulation theory, but
okay.
We successfully modeled all the neurons of a fly, put it into essentially a computer program, and then unleashed that model into a virtual environment and just monitored the fly interacting with the virtual environment in real time as the neurons fired.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, we weren't able to fix the question of like memory and neuroplasticity. That's still left open, but the fly is currently running in a simulation and looks very natural.
That's interesting.
And we'll never really know if it's truly it, but it looks like a fly.
That's interesting because 2 years ago, the Breakthrough Science Award was for developmental biology for just basically using fluorescent proteins, spatial awareness. It's incredible what you can track. About a cell that's like developing. So that actually it makes a lot of sense to me. Like what we can. We have so much data in science now. Like we have so much sequencing data, the transcriptomics, like all the different transcripts that are made from DNA to RNA constantly, all the different types of proteomics, all the proteins that are existing at any given time. So it actually is kind of like an interesting and needed solution within biology is to like, how do you marry all this information? And before it's kind of like a deep learning model, right? Deep learning being that, we can give all this data and it can kind of like go through and create these relationships that we didn't see before. So that's what we've been using it specifically for a lot. But I think that there's so much like cool things that you could do with AI and in science research right now. I think that it's really limitless. It's really fun.
So you think that? Wow, I'm surprised. So you think that like within our lifetimes, you don't think we'll be able to fully encode all of the mechanisms and pathways of the human body on a chip? And
I would say less than 1%.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, because there's like we can't even do that with a microbe, man. Like we can't even do that with a bacteria.
You don't think so?
No.
I feel like we could. Wow.
No.
I'll just read a little bit more. I thought we were closer than we were. Okay.
No, I mean dude, it's crazy because sometimes things just don't work. This is called the biological black box, where like things that you would think were like so easy, even changing a part of the genome that you're like, oh, okay, this is going to work. Like, why can't it work? I sequenced this part of the genome. I know this cutter works. I know that this is the right sequence. And then it just doesn't. Like, for whatever reason, you can't edit that part of the genome for maybe it's wrapped around a histone or something. And it's like, it's just, you can't, I don't know. There's sometimes in some ways it just doesn't work. And you're just like, there is a black box in biology that even the most simple things, and you're like, this should work like this. I'm double checking things and there's always a human error, right? There's always a chance of human error, but like, some things just don't work in biology and we have no idea why.
Let me see if I can pull you this article that I sent to him.
And I think the big question too is, do the neural simulations that we're creating, do they really represent what would happen to a natural consciousness or a natural brain in that environment? Probably not, because something in the environment could trigger some sort of hormone, which then triggers some sort of neurological reaction. And being able to simulate that chain is probably going to be way more complex than actually simulating the brain.
I mean, this is the whole goal of synthetic biology is removing that biological black box that we can kind of like better understand what's happening. But like synthetic biology, you can kind of think about as kind of like being a third person observer in the space and just like having the biological organism kind of like surround you and you kind of like existing in that without impacting anything, because we know how it works so well that we can kind of control and manipulate things without impacting the system. But that just isn't possible yet. Oh yeah, yeah. This is I remember seeing this. Yeah, the time capsule for cells stores the secret experiences. Yeah, the different cool. Yeah, the different structures of RNA. Yeah, dude. This is transcriptomics that I was talking about. Basically, kind of. Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool. I mean, we're the more data that we're getting. This is a great example of just like big data, right? We're just getting a lot of data, a lot of data.
He was like, "Go on, sorry."
Are you of the camp that we can delete 90% of the genome and still be able to create a functioning life form?
90%
for humans, is that what you're talking about? Like for the junk DNA stuff? Yeah. So that's kind of like misused. I mean, so basically, like we have in our genome around 21,000 genes, but we make around over 100,000 different types of proteins. So from that genome. So what happens is like you have a lot of splicing going on. You have, basically these type of like regions where they're being used, and that junk DNA isn't like junk. It's actually kind of like used for a lot of different things. So you can actually have different type of regulatory mechanisms during transcription, translation, pre-transcription, post-transcription, like all the pre-slicing, post-slicing, like there's all these different the gaps of regulation within molecular biology, which is why so many different cancers exist actually too. Why, right? Because like those stop gaps that I'm talking about, those can all have errors in them, and then that makes cancers spread because they don't care about being regulated. So it kind of in the same way, it's just incredibly complex, and from what you have when you try to knock out things, you impact other ways, other parts of the genome that you don't have, that you don't understand. But this is actually the J. Craig Venter was working on this with Synthetic Genomics, the company. They've since rebranded to Viridos, but they had a paper talking about this, doing the synthetic, the minimal organism kind of idea. So you're not like knocking things out as much as you just have what you think is completely necessary, and then trying to like build off from that.
And it's the idea that maybe there's some redundancies in the genome, and that if you remove the genome, another gene will be able to pick up that process that was needed.
Yeah, so you can have different genes at multiple parts of the genome. So like the redundancy, like you're saying, for sure. And then, but you can also, if you remove that protein entirely from the entire genome, you can actually have proteins that are similar shape that can kind of like do the part not that well, but can do that part, and it can kind of like restore that function. So that's actually how evolution works. That is what happens when you're a population of flies and you land on a cactus that has something that interferes with your ability to, your mitochondria to work or something. I don't know, some type of like pesticide or something that it has. If it's a novel chemical that you've never encountered as a fly, basically there could be another protein inside your organism that is made like for a different purpose, maybe a heat shock protein, for example, that can then bind to that pesticide, and then that can like basically allow you to survive. So that's it's really interesting, man. This is the cool thing about genome engineering and doing stuff like that, is that it's kind of like if you think about a stream going down a mountain, and you have like chutes, you can put in like different blockades and stuff. Or like if you were a kid and you had the rain gutters and stuff, there's like tons of water going down, and then you could like put in dams, but you can like the water is always going to shoot out somewhere, right? That metabolic energy, those metabolic credits or money, is going to be spent in other different ways, and it's interesting. It's just really fun. It is a really cool thing.
And this is pretty out there too, but do you think the techniques of just perpetually replacing organs could end up becoming more and more mainstream within medicine for longevity?
Perpetually?
Do you mean like replacing them in order to kind of like be more like youthful?
Yeah, in the sense of
the ship like replacing the planks over time.
Exactly. Or just because essentially, like, since we're getting to the point now where, mass re-engineering of your genome is going to become more and more feasible. It's less and less science fiction, more and more realistic. I would say like man, that is very science fiction for me. I would say maybe like something like telomere, like doing something with like restoring telomere length or something might be more feasible than that. That seems rough. That seems like a rough one. Okay, gotcha.
Because you wouldn't want to like do organ transplants. That just wouldn't be like a good idea. You'd want your body. Your body already makes a new heart every 7 years anyway. So it already kind of like replaces all those cells over time. So you just kind of like, make it so that us as a vesicle, as a vehicle, can kind of like live longer. And I think that maybe that you could do something like that.
I do think that we should try to get more people to become organ donors.
Yeah.
In America,
everyone should be organ donor. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think we have a huge deficit of we have a huge.
Really?
I think a majority of drivers are not organ donors, because it's you have to vouch in instead of vouch out, which I get it. There's an ethical dilemma there, and there's some people who don't want to be organ donors, and that is totally fine. But I do think that we should hopefully preach for more people to become organ donors.
For sure, yeah. Save a life, man. Become an organ donor.
I know, 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, so you're talking about you brought up you work in yeast side of things. So is that correct?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I've worked with like algae. I've worked with land plants. I've worked with algae again for my PhD, and then yeast, and then bacteria. Everyone works in bacteria in molecular biology.
So what I'm trying to think about, right? You're like, there's a lot of runoff of pollution in different industries, and I'm just trying to think of like different ways that we can create more efficient biofuels, or more net negative or net neutral gases. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to figure out, like, as you mentioned, that we're able to now do not only single cell, we're not only able to sequence individual. We're able to sequence population. Are we going to better be able to understand how we can use them to act as catalysts for chemical reactions, for us to have more efficient biofuel transitions?
It's a great question, man. I mean, so yeah, I worked in an algae biofuels lab. So, but basically,
super! This is so exciting.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could actually have we could basically we could produce all the fuel that we need in order to live in the United States. Like, we could basically domestically produce all of our own oil with an algae pond the size of like Montana. So it seems big, but then the other step of that question is like, wow, there's actually like an algae pool that's like smaller than the entire pool of the United States. I thought it would have been larger than the entire United States. So, and the problem that we have right now is that basically for algae, for biofuels specifically, we have an antiquated law in the books, which requires ethanol to be 10% of our gasoline. And basically in the 90s, that was passed by Bill Clinton, and it caused a lot of people to plant corn. And corn is kind of like an old way of kind of looking at this same problem. Corn like just isn't really good for like a lot of things. And if you as we take more and more gas vehicles off the road over time with electric vehicles, this is just going to happen, right? There's going to be less of a demand for that ethanol, which means that more of these corn farmers are going to be out of work. So I think that's actually, we are in this way very much so in a transition period right now in the United States from kind of like corn into something that's more, microbiology specific. And it's because like algae is really good for this because like one, we're always going to have internal combustion engines, we're just always 100%. Going to like large construction vehicles are always going to be internal combustion. Planes, there's just no way to have a electric airplane 747. It's just not possible. Like you need the thrust, and it's just not possible. And basically, algae can do the dense aromatic rings that jet fuel needs. So it's actually really cool.
Have you seen some of the electric regional planes, though?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, so we're now at the point where it's no longer theory.
Okay,
but
cool.
We're seeing the first regional airlines going with full electric planes.
Wow.
Regional?
Yeah.
What cargo load?
So we're talking like probably 20 to 30 people the
Wow.
So
that's cool.
Are we using? I'm assuming these are like solid state batteries, then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
Okay.
And what's really interesting about it is that it's not just the fuel efficiency gain; it's the maintenance gain that actually makes the economics viable. Where you're probably going to start seeing all the short haul, like sub 200-mile routes, being fully electric.
Wow, that's really cool.
Just because the capex is higher, but the maintenance and fuel offset it and pay off within 2 to 3 years.
You know what's one of the funniest things in this conversation? When we talk about these things, I think it's so awesome. Like Joey, like you have a lot of this things like on the economic side, which just makes me so excited. But then we look back, and still to this day, small regional airplanes and any type of propeller plane still uses leaded fuel, and that is still current law. And you're like, wow,
that's crazy.
And you see people that live downwind of small local airports. They have higher concentrations of lead in their kids' blood, which decreases their IQ. And you're like, we think about like we're so advanced, and then yet that is still law. And you're like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
that is crazy. So, but go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess I think the algae biofuels is a good solution. That's really cool about the regional planes. I guess like the 747s. I know that the 747s have done algae blends, 50% algae blends.
So cool.
Yeah, and it's like if you think about it, like the what we're sucking out from the ground is plant matter that has been pushed together, right? So, and you have all the different like the lipids, which is what the fuel is, and then you have all the other plant matter, and then that's extracted, and then that's what the crude like oil is, and then they basically take the lipids out, and then the lipid chain is what you combust in order to make the fuel. So that's what the 85, 87, 89, that's actually the length of the carbons in the chains. And the point with algae biofuels and why it's like it would actually be a good like drop-in replacement is like basically we could use all the gasoline, the gas stations right now, the pipelines, the tanks, the trillions of dollars of investment. You could just drop that in right now. And basically what you're doing is that you're using carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, putting it into the algae, and then
hydrocarbons. Wow.
And then and then pushing it into, and then when you're combusting, that's those carbons go back into the atmosphere. So you're basically taking carbon from the atmosphere and then putting the carbons back into the atmosphere, as opposed to right now, which is what we're taking the fuel from the ground and the carbons from the ground, and then putting the carbons right into the atmosphere. So that's the problem with it.
Does that make it zero emission technically?
So
Since it's offsetting.
So that's a really good question. So basically, it's not zero basically there's energy required when you make the algae. So
But we can fix that.
yeah. So basically the biggest energy sink right now is removing the water from the algae, because water and oil don't mix, and then the chemical reactions don't work. So you have to remove all of the water first, and basically people are trying to chemically remove the water from the algae ponds.
And what type of input do they need besides just CO2?
A lot of it. So a lot of it is you can do wastewater from the algae raceways, but in order to get really dense, the densest algae that you actually use fermenters, just like the beer or yeast fermenters, and you just give them sugar. So it's just one of those things where it's just so cheap to have that kind of stuff.
Wait, sugar?
Mm-hmm, yeah. They don't need.
They're breaking down the sugar.
Yeah, so Chlamydomonas renhardi. So not all algae require sunlight in order to grow. They can actually grow in the dark. Yeah, they can grow in the dark with the sugar source. Yeah.
So you're telling me the algae could also consume alcohol?
They could do sugars, but yeah.
But you can't. Can we not do? Can you not take an intermediate that takes alcohol, converts that into sugar, then that put the I'm just thinking about runoff of chemical plants where you have high concentration of maybe some type of yeast, high concentrations of alcohol, high concentrations of
Well, they take. So someone in chat asked too. So basically, what happens right now is that ethanol is made from the corn. So the corn's grown, and then the corn creates that sugar, and then that sugar from the corn is then fed into the yeast, and then the yeast makes the ethanol, and then that ethanol is put into the gas. So
it's literally the same process as fermentation, right? It's literally
beer.
For normal
beer.
alcohol.
Yeah, it's basically making maize. You're making maize beer.
And then burning it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so there's a couple options. This space it's kind of one of those things where it's unfortunate. Algae biofuels has kind of never gotten up to the economy of scale. And if you think about the amount of energy, engineering, science that you need in order to make algae in fermenters versus just sucking the lipids out of the ground, of course, obviously oil is going to be a lot cheaper, and we subsidize oil companies already $30 billion a year. Really frustratingly, we actually did have $10 billion from the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill, but that got raided, and we don't have that money anymore. That was supposed to go specifically to algae biofuels, so that money's gone now. But yeah,
did they essentially just cancel the grants and say you don't meet the criteria?
Yeah, so the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill left $400 billion in carbon credits, and basically that piggy bank, because the Biden administration didn't use that money in order to just put down a bunch of stuff. I mean, that was a big problem. People were very critical. Where are the electric vehicle charging stations? Where is this money going? And they're best faith interpretation. They're trying to use it without wasting it. So that's why that money was there. And then basically the Trump's omnibus bill, when he came in, they needed to offset the money that we're spending to give to billionaires in their tax cuts. So they took that money from the $800 billion from the carbon credits, and then they offset it because they were doing budget reconciliation. It had to be kind of balanced in some way.
And help me understand, is algae biofuels considered actually a net positive in terms of energy? or is it net negative, kind of like with some of the corn ethanol plants?
I mean, the ethanol's like very energy. It's actually not very energy dense. So I would say that, like, because of the capabilities, like, you know, we haven't actually like seen a bunch of, we haven't seen the economy of scale happen, and there's some potential capabilities of genetic engineering of the algae itself in order to make more lipids. So like, I think that there is like kind of like some possibility there. So yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's good.
Yeah. But I guess that's the whole thing, is like, does algae biofuel make economic sense without subsidies at this point?
Without subsidies, no, it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to. The idea was like in 2008, like when I was first in the lab, it was like, you know, we were reaching peak oil. You know, like we hadn't really just done a bunch of horizontal fracking and expanded like crazy. Like the United States didn't become the number one oil. Yeah, Frank, if you want to come in, dude, you can come in. He's one of my real life best friends. Oh, you can't. You only have 17 followers, dude.
We'll follow him.
Yeah, everyone follow Northford. Let's see. Here, Frank. Let me call you.
But Joey, we can probably do the math to figure out the cost of these. I'm intrigued because, like, I think these biofuels are very important, right? Like, I know Porsche is trying to work on some of them as well, for race fuels. I think it's like you were using the word net positive in energy. I think
just
go on.
Just in the sense of, like, my understanding with a lot of the corn-based ethanol fuels is that the amount of energy that you expend growing the crop and the amount of energy that you expend processing the crop and fermenting it is less than the actual energy yield of the final oil product. So it will never, ever make economic sense unless you can get some sort of drastic reduction or efficiency gains on the planting or refining side. And I was curious, like, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. From the last time I read, currently in the United States, we need a threshold of 22% corn ethanol in our gas for it to be carbon neutral. On the carbon neutral side, I think it would be impossible to be able to do the math on the energy side, because there's always going to be an energy imbalance, right? Because we're always having an energy imbalance when we talk about oil, because it is something that took millions of years to manufacture. And oil today, it's like, you know, corn is going to have some proportion of water usage, land loss, sun usage, and I don't know how we could even try to balance the macro energy scales to figure out if it's a net positive. We should really only focus about if it's net carbon positive or negative.
Yeah. What do you think, Frank? How's it going, man? Thanks for joining.
Hey, dude. Yeah. Mic check. How am I doing?
Doing good.
Closer to the mic if you can, and then speak up.
Where am I? How about that?
Yeah, way better. Nice.
Yeah, nice. Dude, I literally, like, I'm just sitting here doing nothing, and I was like, oh, let's see what's going on TikTok Live. I swiped your channel. The first thing I hear is, and algae biofuels, are they economical? I was like, oh, shit, I know this one.
Yeah, Frank, can you give your background as much as you can, I guess?
Yeah, sure. So I'm like Greg. Him and I kind of came up through the ranks of microbiology together. So I've been a microbiology researcher and project manager for about 15 years now. I did my graduate work studying diatoms for the production of lipids, based off the aquatic species program work that was funded back, in the 70s and 80s and up through the first biofuel boom. So I've been, and I continue to work. I'm a contractor with the Department of Energy. I work out of their bioenergy office. So I manage pretty much, the entire portfolio of algae biofuel stuff. with a team of hundreds of qualified people, in our bioenergy office here. So it's a super, super interesting space to be in. Definitely has a lot of ebbs and flows. But we also work in just like, agricultural sciences, and how do we utilize our saying is like, how do we take the carbon we have and turn it into the carbon we want? And it always does boil down into economics. And it also depends on like, commodity scale things. So I know I'm kind of like jumping in here. I missed all of your guys' like,
No, it's good. Yeah, we were just
whatever you were talking about before. So
yeah, we were just talking about like the use of, like why algae, why it would be good. What's the point of it? Why people are interested in it? And then we were kind of just like segueing, and I was kind of just giving a background into like how it works, why it works. And then I was talking about like the carbon source for algae, which you can talk to directly from your research, and then the economics of it.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where it's like it's inevitable, because it is it's chemical storage of the sun's energy. And you need to store the sun's energy in some way. You can build solar panels and you can store the sun's energy in batteries, or you can grow plants and you can store the sun's energy in chemical bonds, right? That's
such a good way to look at it.
That's how the world works. So if you want to store chemical bonds, you need to have a way to grow that. And the most efficient thing that has evolved on this planet in producing those chemical bonds is algae that produce storage molecules such as lipids and carbohydrates. They're really difficult to grow, and when you're like a terrestrial being like a human, and planting seeds is super easy to do, like we grow plants to do it. But plants are really inefficient because plants have roots, plants have stalks, plants have leaves, and plants grow a seed once a year. So a plant has to do this like whole year-long cycle and produce all these supporting structures to produce one seed. And the reason why seeds are energy-rich molecules and energy-dense molecules is because that's how they carry the next generation forward. So like they're putting all their energy into that little packet of DNA and supporting it with all the supporting energy. So it's like, okay, little corn seed, good luck in the future. We're going to go plant you. I hope you have enough energy to turn into a big plant, because you're going to need all this energy to grow roots and stems and leaves before you can even grow another seed.
But
so you have to like,
dumb question.
Yeah.
Do we not yield the biomass from like the stalk and all the non-seed components with corn crops?
Yeah, so it comes down to the type of chemical bond that the plant produces. So things like starches and lipids are easily broken down, and those bonds are easily, the energy from those bonds releases very easily, right, through things like combustion, right, respiration. You can eat those things and they break down really easily. The stalks and the leaves, that's like lignin and cellulose. So those bonds are really, really difficult to access. It's not simple sugars. They're extremely complex molecules that hide the carbon and the linkages between the molecules. It takes a lot of energy to get those bonds to break, essentially, and to release it. And so that's why like fungus exists, right? Because before fungus, there wasn't anything breaking down lignin and cellulose.
Oh,
right?
holy crap. Oh, wow.
So like if you guys look up like history of like coal formations, there's these huge massive coal formations that exist because fungus never evolved to break down the lignin and the cellulose that turns into coal formations. So
You're telling me that those giant peat fields don't have fungus? They don't have the mycelium?
No, they do now. I'm talking like you have to think like millions and millions of years ago, because like plants evolved before fungus, right? So there used to be like think of like a forest, right? A forest growing for 1 million years and all these trees falling down, but there's no fungus to eat the trees. So there would literally be forests like hundreds of feet deep of just dead trees because nothing's eating the trees, because it's so difficult to break that bond that those trees make, the lignin and the cellulose. So fungus had to like spend millions of years evolving enzymes to figure out how the fuck to break down cellulose and lignin. So my point is like there's not a lot of energy to be harvested out of those molecules. It's really difficult, besides like burning it in a fire, right? That's the easiest way. So the best way to like make use of non-seed organics is to just burn it, right? Burning wood is super efficient. That's the best use of wood. If you try to extract, liquefy wood essentially and break down all the chemical energy into something like an alcohol, it's a ton of work. It's really inefficient. You can do it. Like we have a lot of programs that work. And that's like, if you look at like lignocellulosic ethanol production, that's like, that's essentially, it's one of those things, it's one of those problems that you're not trying to solve until you're like, man, I've got a lot of this stuff. What should I do with it? Right. So if you're growing corn, you are like, holy shit, I've got a lot of extra stuff that's not just corn. I've got all this waste stalk, all these waste leaves. Like, what else can I do with it? So, like,
are you saying that Big Lignin is trying to get subsidies for technology that will never make economic sense?
Big Lignin loves those subsidies because big Lignin's coming for us, dude. So, but back to the algae though. My point is that algae doesn't have roots. It doesn't have stalks. It doesn't have leaves. It doesn't have a year-long cycle. It has a day-long cycle, right? So it's a single cell organism. This is why like yeast is the same thing. You can make a lot of really cool molecules like oils and like, I mean, like all the stuff that comes from fermentation tanks these days out of bacteria and yeasts and algae. It's way more efficient for making like all of our clothing fibers, all of our industrial enzymes. Like I guarantee you, everything you look at in your room that you're sitting in and touch right now, about half of it came out of like an industrial fermentation tank from a microorganism. That's just how things are made now. People don't realize it. Like all of our chemicals, all of our fibers, all these synthetic things, they're all produced by microbes in fermentation tanks because they grow so fast and it's so efficient, and all you got to do is feed them sugar. So algae can do that. Algae is the only one that can do that with sunlight though. Everything else requires you to like already have something that, harvested the sun's energy somehow. So whether it ate something else or it was another plant and then you harvested the seeds and fed something sugar, whatever. But algae has a chloroplast, so it can directly capture the sun's energy and immediately turn it into, a storage molecule of your desire or like some other protein or peptide or whatever. And it doesn't have to grow all those supporting structures like plants do. So it's just way more efficient in that sense.
I have a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead. I know I've been ranting.
But no, please. No, this is super interesting. So my first question is, do we see different buoyancy rates for different types of algae depending on what they consume, right? Because I'm assuming if they have something with chloroplast, they're going to have some type of lipids that are lightweight for them to float so that they have better access to sunlight. If it consumes some type of sugar, they're going to be denser. Are we going to see denser lipids?
Yep.
Or
so lipids in general, like any lipid is going to be less dense than water. So oil floats on water, right? But you also have to consider the fact that it's trapped inside of a cell membrane. So you can think about it as like the average density of the cell will be becoming more buoyant with more lipids, and that's like there's an evolutionary theory about some diatoms in the ocean, like because people are always like, okay, why did diatoms evolve to be diatoms are like the major source of plankton in the ocean. Diatoms are more productive. People don't know about diatoms at all, but the diatoms are like the most productive thing. They're like they're the ones that are responsible for most of the oxygen generation. They're the ones that are responsible for like pretty much the basis of the food chain in the entire ocean. And they grow out in the cold, like polar regions and everything, and they just harvest all of these nutrients from these upwellings, and they're just out there growing and producing lipids, and everything eats them. But they float on top, and they float on top even though that they're kind of a heavy cell compared to other things, because the cell wall of a diatom is made out of glass. It's actually silica oxide. But so if you think about like a glass bottle in the ocean, it's probably going to sink, but they also make oil. So like kind of there's some evolutionary theory about like, did they produce the oil so they can float higher up to get access to more sunlight?
Wow, interesting.
And there's some people who have worked in the biofuel space where they use that actually as a screening method. or selection method rather, where they're like, okay, we want to evolve a new strain of algae and we want to push a certain phenotype and we want to push lipids. So we will do that, and then we'll do like a very like low G centrifuge, and we'll like skim off the stuff on top, right? And using like buoyancy as a gradient essentially to like select stuff that floats more, and then it does in fact like accrue more lipids. So it's one way to like push that phenotype of having a higher lipid content.
You take the center one. Okay, very interesting. And so when you guys, if for production, right? So I'm assuming if you want to maximize your yield of the lipids, you want to be growing the algae essentially 24/7. And are you guys adding bubblers and then you put some type of source of light into the water, or are you growing them in tubes where you have more sun exposure? What do you think is the most effective way to rapidly grow?
Yeah, this always comes down to like a question of economics, right? How much money do you want to spend on infrastructure? Because like, why are you paying for light bulbs when the sun exists? You know, why are you building all this supporting infrastructure and, you know, min-maxing your system when you could just like mimic what the ocean's doing? So it's a really difficult question, and this is kind of the pitfall where like I would say like a lot of algae biofuel companies fail, because there's like some really good products you can make in those like really expensive systems where you can like you can overpower the system with like hyper control, you know, precision cultivation techniques. But if you're trying to produce something like, if we're going back to biofuels like you guys were talking about, you're still competing with a global commodity that can rise and fall, you know, as we've seen every decade, right? Oil spikes, oil drops, like, so you don't want to like pin your investment to something that is like, okay, if oil's at $100 a barrel, I'm good, but if it drops to 80, I'm out of business, you know?
So do we know what the price per gallon would be?
For what?
For a fully biofuel.
I mean, like everything's speculation, you know, because the facilities don't exist. So
okay.
It's all
There's no
on paper.
estimates?
There's tons of estimates. You can go look up all the research papers you want. There's thousands of publications on different estimates. You know, people will say like, you know, $0 to $100 a gallon, but it's like, it's all just on paper. So the facilities, there's only been like really like one or two companies that have like built out what we call like pilot or demonstration scale facilities to like really investigate the techno-economics, and they've all failed so far. But this brings me back to my point, where it's like they're gonna keep failing, but people are gonna keep trying, because the point that you should understand is technologies like this are inevitable, right? It might not be 10 years, it might not be 100 years, it might not be 1,000 years, but eventually there is no alternative, right? You have to, if you want to maintain civilization as we know it, we need to have a source of liquid hydrocarbons, right? And that means oil and gas. And all oil and gas originally came from the sun through plants and algae, right? It's been fossilized. When those fossils are gone, we're still going to need those liquid hydrocarbons from something, right? There's not enough space on land to do it with plants. That is an easy calculation to do. If you wanted to replace the entire US's usage of oil, 20 million barrels per day, you would need like 110% of the US's total land area of like corn and soybeans, right? So like the entire continent. It doesn't work.
Quick thing though, theoretically, right? Probably the most efficient thing for taking electrons from the sun and turning it into usable energy is probably solar panels. Can we agree to that?
Yeah, I mean, like some solar panels are like, depends on which ones. I mean, they're getting crazy efficient, like 30 or like 40% efficient now, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a chloroplast, Greg, like a 7% maybe? Like what's...
I don't know. I don't know. You'd know better than me.
No, plants and algae are like not even 10%.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you think we're going to get to a world where we continue to get the efficiency gains on photovoltaics that we drop the cost of electricity to such a point that you can then use electricity to increase yields on algae to then create essentially a mobile fuel that will be necessary for certain applications.
Photobioreactors kind of thing.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, no, there's definitely like there's projects out there where it's like, yeah, we could just like build out a solar array next to, you know, this facility and have like essentially an independent, you know, facility that's like, yeah, converting photovoltaic into all your generation usage on site to then run like lights at night or something like that. Like, yeah, you could, but the issue is like, it's a scale issue. When you're talking about like millions of barrels of things, you know, you need like, pretty much you need like traditional agricultural approaches where we're talking about like large open fields of a crop.
What about just dumping them in the ocean? So essentially just like inject GMO algae into the open ocean and just start harvesting them.
Yeah, there's so many, like, you guys can go look up like all these crazy papers and ideas that are out there. Like, people float all these ideas. They're all, you know, I don't know. Maybe.
You seed the oceans too, like not just like the native algae. You could put like some type of like iron supplement or something in it, and then increase.
Yeah, there is ocean seeding. Like people do that already, where they'll drop like iron sulfate into the ocean because iron is usually the limiting nutrient out in the open ocean. So that will incur like you'll get a big bloom, but it's a dilution problem at that point. So, you know, like to put it in perspective, like a really, really good dense culture of algae, like the one I'm holding in my profile picture here, right?
The tasty stuff.
Good, like if you're really, really good at growing algae, what percentage of that flask do you think is algae out of 1 liter? 1 liter. What do you think? What percentage do you think is algae?
Oh, that's a good question.
3 parts per million.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that 3 ppm's probably. I'm trying to think of the ppm calculation. Yeah, it's less than 1%, right?
Yeah,
it's like 0.1%. If you can get to 1%, if you can get to 1 part per thousand, you're like reaching, like thermodynamic maximums. So we're talking like 0.1% dilution is a really, really strong culture. So you put that out in the ocean, and now you're trying to harvest 0.001% of the ocean. You're processing a lot of water to get the thing you're after. So like maybe someday, if energy is not a cost and we have like giant harvesting things and it's something else out there isn't like eating all the stuff that you just seeded, sure, maybe.
Interesting, because our solar panels are not going to become more efficient than what they currently are.
Says you, buddy. Says you, buddy.
It says thermodynamics. We're in the limits of what we can do, right? Like a p-n junction can only get as if our p-n junction can get smaller. Otherwise, we're not going. It's not going to do the purpose. It's not going to do the service that it wants to do. That's the issue, right? But I'm just trying to think about it. It's like my concern now, like you're talking about these giant open areas. Like, I mean, you're going to have a massive evaporation issue.
Yep.
So why? Yeah, go on.
Well, no, finish your question there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. Like in my mind, it's like why don't we just essentially run the algae through tubes or clear tubes, and you just wire rack it,
right?
Yeah, they do. They have these. Yeah, the photobioreactors are really cool. Yeah. They're really cool. But then you get into weird things where it's like heat, problems. It's really hot in there. But this is like why like the fermenter kind of like idea what we were talking about before with kind of is like an interest. If you want the highest density algae cultures that you can, right, Frank? That's like the way.
Yeah, so I would say that there's the best utilization is not going to be a silver bullet, right, approach. It's going to be a shotgun approach. So this is the cool part about it, is that there's so many different ways to grow algae, and there are so many different algae, and there's different systems that fit into our current civilization in different spots really well. So one area that is really, really active right now for algae companies and research and everything is wastewater treatment. And wastewater treatment is where you will see things like the tubular photobioreactors, are essentially these like high capital cost, extremely productive, really dense systems. Because you can plug those into wastewater treatment plants, or you can put them onto, like, we've got companies that put them on like cow farms, and they're like dairy waste and everything like that. So, the manure, sludge, whatever's coming off the farms and everything, all that like super organic, really like nitrogen, phosphorus rich material, you can put it into those algae reactors, and they will suck all of that, all those nutrients into the cell, and they'll explode in growth, and it keeps the nutrients out of the water. Right. So you don't get like dead zones downstream, because that comes from algae blooms that then die in the ocean. So you do all of that upstream, and you capture it, and then you can take that algae organic waste and then utilize that as, like, we like to use it as like fertilizer, because it doesn't actually make good stuff for biofuels, but there's an application for it, is my point,
And you can pitch it as...
Go ahead.
And you can pitch it as waste remediation, and essentially generate revenue from a waste remediation while also generating energy.
Right. Yeah, it could be for energy, but really it's more about just like, I feel like every time people think about growing algae, they're always like, okay, well, algae biofuels. It's like, no, it's not just about making energy. It's like, how do we just like improve, in industry, right? There's minimize impact, in multiple different ways. Like I said, it's a shotgun approach. So if we can use the same systems that were essentially funded to make biofuels, but we can pivot them and say, let's use them to treat wastewater and minimize eutrophication events in freshwater streams and lakes, right? That would be really impactful for ecosystems and coastal cities, right? People would be happier, economics work out better. We're taking a waste stream and making a valuable product. That's like kind of the best part about working with these organisms and this system. You can interject them into these linear waste streams and turn it into like a cyclical event where you're producing something valuable and bringing it back, upstream into society and stuff.
And how's the research going in terms of just creating random mutations within algae and just seeing what happens? Like, are we at the point where we're vastly CRISPRing these algae to try to essentially breed them into more desirable products and more desirable organisms?
Frank is literally a published expert on this exact question.
I'm like the world expert on breeding algae.
Literally.
Hell yeah. There's literally no one else who's bred more algae and published on it than me. But so good guy to ask that question too. But I mean that through through sexual reproduction, because it is extremely difficult to get algae to have sex in a lab. You have to play like all the right music. You got to get them in the mood. They're just like, they get super shy. So if you don't hit them with if you don't hit them with Marvin Gaye, like right the moment, they're just like, no, not doing it, man.
Standard.
No, it's true. It's really hard to get algae to do sex and to have like reproduction in the lab. So we have to rely on tools like random mutagenesis and CRISPR to make the changes that we need. Massage a nice bath. It's just like, I worked with a lineage of algae that is known to, like, it frequently has sex in the lab under like predictable conditions. So it's like it became a lab model. It's Chlamydomonas reinhardti. It's the same one that Greg worked on, because it's the same one that everyone works on, because you can have sex with it. So you can do genetic work.
That's what this is. All these pictures right here. These are all
That's awesome. Yeah. So there's like, honestly, there's like 3 or 4 algae that you can get to have sex in the lab.
Yeah. And you're trying to breed for the sluttiest algae, pretty much.
Pretty much, right? Yeah. Greg just has like algae smut porn behind him. You guys just didn't know it.
That's my secrets.
Yeah. So, so like if you're working, if you want to work on like anything besides this one species of algae, because it kind of sucks to work with for like everything else. Like if you want to go grow biofuels or wastewater treatment, like it's not a good one for it. It's a really good like lab rat. So if you want to do genetics and understand like how genes work, you want to understand evolution, like how did the chloroplast evolve? How did flagella evolve? How did an eye spot evolve? Like it's a really good organism to like study all of that stuff because you can, do crossbreeding and whatever. But if you want to like produce a industrial microbe, you're going to pick something else, and that other thing's not going to be able to have sex. And if you look at all of our human evolution, like the only way that we got here is by, using sexual reproduction, breeding is what we typically call it, breeding, with plants and animals, right? Like we chose certain traits and we bred them together and crossed them and did that 10 times, did it 100 times, did it 1,000 times, did it 1,000,000 times. And now we have all these awesome plants and animals that, keep us alive and keep us happy. So, so algae is like, 10,000 years late to the party on doing that. So we're like pretty much at square one when it comes to like comparing to other agricultural sciences. We rely on these modern tools. There's a really cool, a new cool tool that came out of Australia called ARTP, which was, it's like, essentially like a plasma mutagenesis. It's like a room temperature plasma mutagenesis. And it essentially like creates like all the different types of mutations that you get from these other mutagens at once. So chemical mutagenesis, UV mutagenesis, they all kind of create their own unique mutations. This like plasma mutagenesis kind of does all of it. So we've been relying on that to just like hit it with everything, figure out what, like sort it out later. We don't really care what mutations happen. We're just like put it through the selective protocols, and you just like, I kind of treat breeding and like mutagenesis as a black box where it's just like, you hit them with a bunch of random changes, and then you go, and it's really all about building out your downstream like selection and pressuring, like how do I pressure these mutations to rise to the top, and then you hit them again with another cycle of mutagenesis or whatever. So there are people that work with CRISPR and stuff, but a lot of that's, most of it's in universities still.
Are you saying you're irradiating them to create the mutations?
Yeah.
Or like, okay.
Yeah. No. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're using like UV. Right, UV mutagenesis is like the simplest form of irradiation.
Are you guys using any type of particle accelerators at all, or no?
No,
Okay.
Nothing like that.
Interesting.
No, it's all really like low tech stuff. Honestly, it's really easy to make mutations. The hard part is selecting and screening. Right, if you don't have a proper selection and screening protocol, it doesn't matter what type of mutations or engineering you do, because you'll never find what you're looking for, because you're
Right.
you're trying to, and this goes for the same for like even engineered stuff. Like this is why we build in, when you're doing like an engineering change to something, you build in a antibiotic resistance or multiple antibiotic resistances, so you can then screen it, because you're like, okay, I need to know that what I just engineered is still there. The change that I wanted to happen, you attach a resistance gene to it, and then you plate out, or you select your lineage onto a field of antibiotics, and it kills off anything that doesn't have that resistance gene. So it's like and then you can go and remove that later. But no, my work that I did, and a lot of the stuff, for like the breeding and the mutagenesis, it's kind of a black box of just like, it's all about like making as many changes as possible without accumulating what we call deleterious mutations, which are like the bad mutations. And this is where having the ability to do sexual reproduction is really important, because what you can do is you can use things like, standard mutagenesis, so like chemical mutants or UV mutants or whatever, plasmas, and you can make all these changes to the genome, and maybe 1 out of 10 of those changes is really good, but maybe 2 out of 10 of those changes is really bad, right? So you can only do that approach so many times, right? So let's say you do a mutagenesis protocol, and you find a mutant that has a nice phenotype that you want, great. You got a 10% increase in whatever you were looking for. Let's do it again. You mutate it again, you get a 2% increase the next round. You mutate it again, and now you don't get any more increases, and it starts to grow funny because like every time you do that mutation, you're accumulating all of these like bad, evil mutations also. But this is the important part about having like sexual reproduction is you can cross it with a healthy partner, and you can then essentially reset all those bad mutations, and you can select for those to go away, and you just look for the lineages, you look for the daughter cells that just maintain the good mutations that you were looking for. And then you can start the whole process over, and now you can get like another 10% increase in your productivity again after another round of mutagenesis. So this is how like all of industrial microbiology works. It's called genome shuffling. If you go look up like industrial microbiology genome shuffling, this is how like even the simplest stuff like soy sauce. There's a really good paper on soy sauce production through genome shuffling, and essentially it's just like the little bug that makes soy sauce. They just like essentially fuse it. They like mutate the heck out of it, and then they fuse it back together with a healthy partner, and they mutate the heck out of it and fuse it back together with a healthy partner, and they just get these like awesome increases in like fermentation gains and everything. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's like if you don't have an organism that you can do that like back crossing with, it makes it really difficult to advance it as a cell line. So that's where algae kind of gets hung up compared to other traditional agricultural products. Because like corn, you can go in and you can make all these cool specific engineering changes. You can use CRISPR, you can use mutagenesis, whatever. And at the end of the day, you can grow a corn plant that produces pollen, and you can cross it with another corn plant, right? And you can do that really easily. Like plants love having sex. That's how plants work. It's super simple. So it's really hard to get microbes to do that, though.
I have to ask, so roughly speaking, so I can get an idea of scale, on an individual mutagenesis cycle, are you talking like changing like 1% of the genome, 0.1% of the genome? Like what order of magnitude are we talking about in terms of like random mutation?
Yeah, that's, classic scientist answer. It depends, right? Yeah. So, and it's also like I don't need who's looking, right? Because you like to figure that out, you'd have to like sequence the entire genome and then compare it and align it with your unmutagenized genome.
Oh, you're not doing that on every cycle? Okay.
No, because that's a waste of time and money. It's like why would I do that? Because I don't care. All I'm looking for is the healthiest, fastest, most productive thing that comes out of it. And we're not like doing anything like ungodly, because if you're just doing like traditional techniques, where it's just like it's just random mutations, So the answer to your question really is like you're not changing it enough where you're going to kill basic cell function, right? Because you could easily it would take one mutation in the wrong place, and all of a sudden your cell just doesn't grow, right? Yeah. So that can happen in like a gazillion places in the genome. One wrong mutation, the cell's dead. This thing doesn't work anymore, your cell's dead. That thing doesn't work anymore, your cell's dead. So like when we're doing we do things called like a kill curve, essentially. So you expose a like field of cells to
until 10% die.
Until 90% die. And you take the 10%. Yeah. So you want like 90% kill rate. You want to irradiate essentially to the point where you're killing 90% of the population, and 10% of the population that's left over, you're like, all right, this definitely has a bunch of mutations in it. And it's, it doesn't have the mutations in the spots that are going to immediately kill the cell. And let's go throw it through the selection and screening protocol and see what comes out the other side.
I guess maybe I'm just like totally out of the loop, but it just seems so random. I'm amazed that there isn't more of like it's like
that's kind of the point though. No, because there's so many different types of like mutations and stuff, and it's kind of just letting evolution do its thing.
This is so the whole point is that, right, like biology is just pure randomness, right? Biology is the most random shit ever. It is so random. Everything in biology is random. And that's why it's like you need to have a screening and selection protocol that makes sense. And you can think of it even as just like think about like corn evolution, right? All people did was say, hey, that one stalk over there grew a seed that was a little bit bigger. This one over here grew a little bit taller than all the other ones. I planted a whole field of corn. Go back 1,000 years, right? You're a Mayan, 1,000 years ago, planting teosinte. I planted a whole field of this grain. That one stalk over there grew 20% taller than this whole field. I'm going to go take the seeds from that one, and I'm going to go plant that one next year. And then next year, I get a field of teosinte, a field of corn that is 20% taller than last year. And oh, that one over there, that one had a grain that was a little bit bigger than I've seen before. I'm going to plant that one next year. Like it's all, so you think of an entire field of corn, it's all these like different mutations through sexual recombination, through random mutagenesis, and one of them happened to pop up to the top. And all you have to do is like, you have to be able to see it. So for like plants, it's really easy to have a screening and selection protocol. It's your eyes. All you got to do is look at them and say, hey, that one's big, that one's tall, that one's juicy. I want that one, right? It's really easy, right? And it's all, but that's like sexual recombination is just nothing but randomness. So like, whenever you're doing like, Mendelian genetics and crossing your pea plants, all you're doing is like these different little crosses. And it's like, oh, what's going to happen here? Oh, what's going to happen there? Let's see. Oh, cool. I want that one. It's yellow. I want that one. It's tall. So it's screening and selection is the thing that matters. You don't need to understand what's going on. You don't need to understand the randomness.
But maybe I'm just optimistic here, but don't you want to get to the point where you can start to decode the genome of the algae that you're dealing with?
Of course. So you can,
yeah.
I mean, at the end.
I mean, like you're talking, and this is where it's like, yeah, sure, give me $10 billion, I'll do whatever I want. Like if you're trying to build like a company that's like fast and efficient, do you think about it as like SpaceX approach, right? Fail fast, right? SpaceX isn't like over analyzing like every single little like, well, should we go try that again? Should we go? No, it didn't work. Throw it out. It's gone. Next thing, boom. Let's try something else, right? So like there's different approaches. I mean, you're talking about like a very academic approach to things where it's like, slow down. Let's look at the entire picture. Let's study every single gene, every single base pair. Why did this one change? And all of a sudden now you have created a university. You've created a national lab. You're spending decades trying to understand one single organism out of a million different organisms. And it's like, okay, was this the right thing to spend 20 years studying? Maybe, but it's not fast or efficient.
Gotcha. So you're literally just saying, let's just create complete freaks of nature, and hopefully from the trillions of freaks that we create, something cool happens.
Yeah, I mean that's how all of biology works.
Gotcha.
Like it's accelerated evolution,
Mm-hmm. And essentially the argument is that because it costs $1,000 even to sequence algae, right? Because it's still a pretty complex genome.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you're sequencing. I mean, sequencing is really cheap. But again, it's like I would say that the time when you want to go back and do the sequencing is like, oh, I found something that's really wow. Like when I compare this one that I found to our baseline or to like everything else out there, like, holy cow, this thing's 40% more productive. Let's hang on to this one and then let's go, sequence it. But we would have gone through 10,000 different strains before we found that one. I don't need to sequence, the other 9,999. Let's just sequence the one at the end that showed up that was like a really special one. And then we can figure out what changed. And then we can use that information to inform us about okay, what levers inside of a cell are the really important ones to turn on, to turn off. Think of metabolism as levers and dials, right? You can switch something on, you can switch something off, you can turn something from 0 to 10 to 11, right? So, and this is where Greg's work kind of comes in, where it's okay, let's turn this on, turn this off, let's over ramp this, under ramp this. And this is where the CRISPR guys come in and they can use these really, really cool tools to overexpress things in new organisms, because until these mutants float to the top, we don't always understand how the hell do we get more of this one thing that we want, So it's really good to have these like random mutations sequenced because it builds out our knowledge base of like, oh, this, this one gene was overexpressed, this protein's super important, this one's not, whatever. And then you can go in with your precision engineering and change other organisms that you haven't worked with before, but that might have like the same metabolic pathways.
Mm-hmm. And are we at the point where we're creating Frankenstein algae, where we'll like take 10 different lines that are good at 10 different things and try to create one like mega algae, or is that way too complex in terms of viability?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't like using the term Frankenstein. Anything like, would you call a dairy cow a Frankenstein cow? Would you call a modern soybean a Frankenstein plant? Like nothing that we have nowadays.
Just wild type.
Yeah, there is no like,
not in the sense of you're not producing it via typical sexual reproduction, where you're literally like saying, "Oh, this gene's really cool. This gene's really cool. Let's all put them all together in one genome because we can."
No one's doing that because that's like it just nature doesn't work like that. Okay. Nature, like it's really hard to produce something like that survives in the wild is the best way to put it. Like, hey, you know what? There you go. The Frankenstein story. What happened in Frankenstein? Were the villagers really happy in the Frankenstein? How did that one go? What was the monster elected president? I forget. Or did everyone?
I'm going to be back. I'm going to be
this timeline.
I'm going to be that guy. But Frankenstein was fine. It was just Frankenstein's monster that was was Frankenstein's monster? Was everyone like, yay, he's here? No, the normal wild people were like, no, kill this guy. And the same thing happens. The same thing happens when you over-engineer any organism and put it in the wild, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, go take a dairy cow and put it in the African savannah. What's gonna happen? Is that dairy cow gonna keep making milk for you? Is that dairy cow gonna be there tomorrow? Like our modern animals and plants don't survive in the wild, right? And they take very, very specific systems and incredible amounts of support to produce the things that we have engineered them to produce. So the same goes for microbes. If you try to over-engineer a microbe and you like put it up against wild type stuff, the wild type stuff's just gonna be like, nah, dude, I'm gonna eat you. I'm gonna outcompete you. Are we taking essentially these lab algae, dumping them into random environments, letting them hang out for a couple generations and coming back and then, seeing if they still survived or were able to sexually reproduce in the wild to see if they're a useful line?
There's a lot of different strategies. And I mean, like, I guess, what do you mean when you say like lab algae? What did you mean by that?
So like, obviously you're irradiating the algae, trying to create custom lines that work within lab environments, but then you're concerned of like, okay, we deploy it and the thing just dies.
Yeah.
That's what I mean in terms of lab algae, just the stuff that you're working with via random radiation mutations.
Yeah, so that's a really great point. So that's what we call like the lab to field transition. So it's really, really easy to just like do all the science you want inside of a laboratory. You can make all the changes, you can make cool algae, they grow great, everything's awesome, everything's happy, and then you take it outside and it dies, right? So it's really tricky to do that transition, and it's really hard to also like, you can't like just like engineer the stuff in the field. You have to bring it into the lab to do the engineering, and then you have to bring it out to the field to test it to see how it does. So this is why it's like really important to have test bed facilities or national labs or universities. Like I used to work at a university, and we had a greenhouse where we would go and we would like test the stuff out in the field, out in the greenhouse, and like, hey, how did it do? Oh, it died. Oh, it sucks outside. Like, okay, so like we have to go and find stuff that is like a lot of my work that I did, I was actually go out and I would call bioprospecting. So it means like you go out into the wild and you go find new strains that are living in like super harsh conditions. So I love to find stuff that like was in really high pH soils or really high salts. So like I found algae that grew at like pH 10 or pH 11, and then we'd bring them back into the lab and we would work with them, and then we'd bring them back outside and we'd grow them in these like big alkaline ponds where the pH is at like 10 or 11 and nothing else can grow in those ponds except for this strain of algae. So it's like super, super clean, and it's really effective in terms of like crop control and everything. So it's like there, you have to, if you don't start with the end in mind, you know, you're just going to end up doing lab experiments and you're never going to make that lab to field transition. So you have to either start with something that's been proven to grow outdoors and then bring it indoors and then learn about it and figure out how to change it and then bring it back outdoors, right? Or you have to, like you were saying, I think you were alluding to the fact, like, do we ever do these experiments outside? And there are, there are some good publications out there about doing like essentially adaptive laboratory evolution in like a open pond or in a bioreactor outside, where they're just like, you're just like leaving the pond, you're leaving the pond outside and like the sunlight is hitting it with UV and UV from the sun is causing those random mutations. And you just like leave the culture outside for like 5 years, 10 years.
Wow.
And you just like continuously grow it, for years and years and years. And as long as you're not letting it die, it's continuing to get UV light, mutagenesis, random mutations from natural sunlight, and you're selecting for stuff that just grows well, grows fast, and then you get a more productive, stable culture out in those ponds in that condition that you selected for.
And not to sound,
Go for it, Joey.
and not to be too crazy, could we just like dump some radioactive material in a lake and just call that a day?
God.
I would not recommend that.
To increase the mutation rate? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You're just gonna kill everything. Nobody likes beta decay, dude.
Beta decay is totally fine, man.
Yeah,
It's totally okay.
No thanks.
What you don't want is californium. You don't want neutron decay. That's when it's really terrifying.
Yeah. No, that's.
I do have a question for you. Okay,
Yeah.
because you guys both kind of harped on something that I've been thinking about. Let's this is a double-sided question. One, if you're trying to use algae to produce or increase the catalyst of hydrogen production, if you created perfect algae and you were to put that in the field, as you say it, how long until you would expect out of the original 100% share of the population, you would expect that the share of the population, the original share of the population that had the growth factor that you expected or the output that you expected would start degenerate, and you would see that population dwindle and another secondary population bloom that is not as efficient as your original goal?
I think I caught most of that. Did you say hydrogen production at the beginning?
Yeah, I'm
though?
just wondering if you can make hydrogen production, because it would be really cool to use algae to make hydrogen.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like hydrogen production.
Wow.
Not out of algae. Not out of algae. It's not like there's like so many better things that they're built for. You can get hydrogen out of them by that's one thing where you kind of got to over-engineer some pathways, and you have to do a lot of weird tricks with nutrient levels and stuff. It's very few strains that do it. I think Chlamydomonas actually is one of them. But it's no, it's just I don't know, hydrogen. Come on, there's so many better ways to get hydrogen.
I mean, the most
electrolysis is
the most efficient is ammonium. No, it's what is it? Ammonium decomposition? No, methane decomposition. That's what it is. That's 34% thermal efficiency. I was just wondering if algae is more efficient or not. So
no, I've never. There was a couple companies years and years ago when biofuel stuff was going crazy that tried hydrogen, and it was just it was kind of one of those things where, because it was there was so much money being thrown around, and no, it's just, I think that's not what these systems are that's not how they evolved. You have to think about algae evolved again as think of the seed mentality, right? Where it's they're a little single-celled seed, and they want to produce energy-dense molecules to hold on to pass to the next generation, or hold on to for themselves when times get tough, right? So that's why they like to produce oils and sugars, because that's their energy. Hydrogen doesn't feed them their own cell. No biological thing eats hydrogen, right? So trying to make them produce hydrogen for human use, that's some Frankenstein stuff. That's that's not going to work, in my opinion. But there's other applications there are other applications for other microbes. You know, you can get hydrogen from other microbes for sure, but for algae, you know, bang for your buck, like you're better off producing oils and sugars and stuff like that.
And so if you were to produce, like, I'm trying to think about, like, you know, let's say you want to produce a high octane fuel and you're making some type of, you know, you have in the field system where you're trying to maximize the lipid content. No, you don't need lipids. You would need, I'm trying to figure out like how you would create, like if you're to try to create biofuels for cars, and you have a strain that is extremely efficient at the output you want. Are those prolonged through multiple generations, or do you see a decay in the long term of these ponds? Do you expect? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like any other agricultural crop in that sense, where you have like a seed bank and you want to like go back to your original seed. So like when we have like this is for all industrial microbiology, like pharmaceuticals do this, you know, like industrial microbe companies doing yeast and bacteria do this. They all have freezer banks of their cell lineages, and they all rear them up, you know, literally from one cell every time they do a big batch. So you start from one cell and you have to scale it all the way up until you get to your, you know, whatever, how many million liter fermentation tank, to make sure that you've maintained that phenotype, because natural mutations do exist, right? And things will drift. So, and it's expensive to like keep it under selection, and it's difficult to prevent those mutations from happening. So, no, once you have like a specific microbe that you want to continuously cultivate, you freeze it, and then you just start from that freezer bank every time.
Understood.
You have like controls. You're running it along like side, like you know, controls to see if it's like mutated a ton. Like I found that for my work at least, if we're making like an expensive protein inside of the cell, then they're going to be more likely to try to shut it off. You know, try to shut off that production of that protein. Or if you're trying to mess up with like the DNA repair mechanisms, for example, which you know, that's a really like integral portion of the cell health. You know, then we would see like other problems elsewhere in the genome that would start like accruing. But yeah, basically, a lot of it's just controls and the seed bank, basically.
Okay, so you always are going back to that ground zero, and then you're building back up. Understood. Okay, yeah, it's something that I haven't really thought about. It's like. Also, thank you guys both. This is such an interesting thing. It's like, this is so outside my field, and it's awesome to hear. It's awesome.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Where speciation is actually a real concern, and like you're going to mutate them so hard that now you can't even go backwards, or like breed them back with the with another essentially line.
Yeah, no, that happens. That can happen easily. You know, I wouldn't call it speciation, but yeah, infertility for sure.
Interesting. That's interesting. I guess I've never tried to breed any of mine, but that's wow. That's surprising that it happened so quickly. I know that there was some sequencing done of like all the lab strains of like all the algae versus kind of like the seed bank that we all use, the national like seed bank, and there was like some pretty crazy like lab divergence. That does happen over time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I mean like it's the whole speciation thing, like, yeah, you can have mutations where they won't mate anymore if they were able to do breeding and stuff. They can't do it anymore. That happened. That could happen like overnight really easily. But that's because they're just super finicky again, and that's like I don't know. You could just catch them in a bad mood, and that won't happen. But or one single mutation, and it won't happen. Like a lot of these little cells, they have like couple little flagella that stick off the front of them, and they use them to like tangle together, and that's how they breed. And you can have like a mutation that just impacts the flagella, and all of a sudden like the flagella don't move, or there's no flagella or whatever, and like they can't find each other, they can't breed. So it's like, yep.
Are they asexual too, or are they only sexual in reproduction?
No, all eukaryotic organisms are sexual. So that's, you know, every single eukaryotic organism does and can have sex in the wild. but getting it to do that in a laboratory setting is really difficult. So usually it's just asexual cloning reproduction.
Wait, they're able to asexually reproduce?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah. They're going through mitosis. So mitosis versus meiosis, right? So mitosis is just like, they're clonal. They're all the same. No DNA is changing. It's just copying, and you're making little carbon copies of each other. There's no shuffling. There's no recombination. There's no sex. Meiosis is where that happens. So if you look up mitosis versus meiosis, right? So most single-celled organisms are just constantly doing mitosis over and over and over and just copying themselves. It takes like a very specific set of conditions to get microbes, eukaryotic microbes, to go through sexual reproduction and actually recombine.
Gotcha. And is there any is there potentially an issue where you can mutate them so hard they can no longer even asexually reproduce?
Yeah. That's what we're saying. Yeah, totally, man. Like, I mean, that's just there's a lot of they just die. There's a lot of I think Greg's talked about this in channel a lot. There's a lot of just basic fundamental things in cells that evolved with the very first cell, and it's don't mess that up. So if you throw a mutation in there, you're just gonna die.
It's called an essential gene. So if you actually take it out, we're going back to what we were talking about before, the minimal genome. They're interested in the Craig Venner stuff, the minimal organism. So basically you're trying to remove all that part of the genome that isn't essential, because if you knock out one of the essential bits, then the organism dies. And basically you're trying to that's how that work was done.
Gotcha. Keep randomly removing things until it dies. And then just and then put a pin in that one. Be okay, we can't move that one. Yeah, basically, I mean, I've had multiple pathway engineering. If I'm trying to make a protein that I want, and I'm all those different shoots and that the metabolism could go under, and you basically that's something that you got to remember. But that's also sometimes one of those cool deep learning abilities for an AI or something, in order to kind of make those correlations that maybe it off in this scenario is bad, but then in this other scenario maybe it's better. It's interesting, man. The organisms are they find ways to rescue those mutations and change, and it's not necessarily a straight shot. Directed evolution, it's not necessarily a straight shot in order to always be improving. Sometimes you have to go around and be less optimal, and then so you can improve later.
What do you think is missing on the field for you guys, right? Because in the nuclear sector, right, we have capital injection coming in. I think Joey also talks a lot about CapEx and a lot of investments coming in. What do you think is the kind of limiting on your side of industry, apart from the side of talking about restrictions or uncertainty on fuel prices, because you don't want to tie business to a global commodity that might change on a daily basis?
Mm-hmm. I'm curious your thoughts, Frank. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of algae and microbe companies out there making tons of awesome products that aren't fuels, So if your question is again, if it's an energy centric question, if you're specifically asking what's it going to take for algae biofuels to happen versus what's it going to take for an algae protein company to happen, or an algae wastewater treatment company to happen, this is what I was saying before, this organism has a giant portfolio of opportunities in our current civilization to embed itself in all these different ways. We haven't even talked about protein production, because protein production is the number one thing that these organisms do. They're 40% protein, 60% protein, some the extremely protein dense material, and because that's what they are, they're mostly just protein. They also produce sugars and lipids, but like there's companies out there that grow these things for the proteins. There's companies that are out there that grow these things for the pigments, you know? So they exist. They're commercially viable products. They kind of almost like self-saturate the market because of how productive they can be. So there's not a lot of room for like competition and stuff, honestly. But there's a lot of like specialty markets if we're talking about that. So that's usually, I don't know, usually it always comes back to the biofuel question. And the issue there is the scale up challenges. And again, kind of what we talked about, going from like lab to field, but then going from like field, going from 1 acre to 1,000 acres to 1,000,000 acres, you know, is really difficult. And getting to that like agricultural scale that, you know, other crops are at, it's a huge jump. It is a gigantic jump. So you need to have a like a economically viable pathway to get there. And usually when you're talking about the fuel stuff, the fuels don't make sense until you get to the like multi-thousand acres, right? Millions and millions and millions of gallons scale. But you have to like pay the bills to get there, you know?
Right.
So like developing other productive like protein or like color pigmentation colors, like dude, like blue M&Ms, the color from blue M&Ms, there's an algae company making that blue color.
Okay.
Awesome.
Dude,
That is awesome. Holy crap.
Like-
so do you think that we're going to see, like, do you hope that your industry will supply, I don't know, like 5% of global food supply? Is that a goal that you guys think that would be feasible?
Yeah, so the protein aspect is one that would be like a really, really great area for people to be more focused on than the fuels aspect, because the protein stuff is also super important for like supporting our modern civilization, right? We need protein. We eat a lot of protein. So like getting that protein into a form that humans like to eat is the tricky part, right? Because you're dealing with like sludge and goo, right? So you have to like extract the protein and put it into like a whey kind of protein powder or something, or you integrate it into something like noodles or pastas or whatever.
Bit of a troll question. Do you eat the aspergillogus, bro? Like, are you down with it? Do you like it? The taste?
Aspergillogus. What is that?
Is that a patty or something?
No, the special algae that is supposedly like the ultimate survival food.
Oh, the spirulina.
Yeah.
Arthrospira.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Just like, you know, I've got other stuff that I have.
But yeah, in general,
I grow my own, dude.
You can basically make food, fuel, and materials kind of like from microbes. Those are kind of like the main the big things. And I think that, I think as climate change is going to be worse and worse, I think we're going to be going more into like an engineered kind of fermentation based, not like fermentation vesicles, not necessarily like fermentation, but I think microbes are like definitely the future in those three aspects for humans in the future, for sure.
So you're telling me that we can't make an algae that has a lot of protein and just tastes like whatever meat we want?
Oh,
We can't just tailor it?
There's a company that did that. They got an algae for that.
So what's up with that? I would love to eat that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, there was a Costco dumpling that had algae meat in it.
No freaking way. I need to look this up. This is so
sold
cool.
out. Yeah. Sold out within the first hour.
Sold out, dude. Go look up Triton Health and Nutrition. So,
was it spirulina?
No, it was Chlamydomonas. So essentially, actually, it was really, really cool. Super cool story about this. So what was it? It was
some say this story is too good to be true. Too good to be
true. Dude, too good to be true. The hemoglobin that is in like pretty much all organisms. It's the stuff that like Impossible. I think it's Impossible Foods uses the soy leg hemoglobin to make their stuff red and everything. These guys were able to use like non-GMO method, just traditional breeding, and produce a strain of algae that had hyperaccumulated the hemoglobin, so the algae turned red. And it had high concentration of the hemoglobin, and that's the stuff that makes meat taste like meat. And they had a whole company, super successful company, actually, really fun technology that they developed, and they made like little dumplings and like little meatballs with it and everything. They did like a bunch of road shows and conferences and stuff. They had a Costco product, definitely they sold out in a couple stores and stuff. And then I think the company got like exported to China. So.
Oh man, I want to try this. This sounds so interesting.
Yeah. It was super unique use of that technology. So
was it economic? Like it could actually compete with commodity meats?
It did.
The cost production was very, very good, and it's now I'm pretty sure it's actually the largest algae producing company in the world, and nobody knows about it. It's somewhere up in China, but yeah, they essentially just like scooped this technology, zoink, went to China with it because China has a protein shortage, and they were like, this is an insane use of algae for production of protein, for production of hemoglobin, and they built like this entire city around fermentation tanks growing this stuff. So
wow, I didn't know that.
The government, dude, Greg,
are they going to use it?
I know.
These are the Miller stories, dude. Just dude. Like, I mean, they've got like I don't know how many million liter fermenters growing clammy right now.
Oh my gosh!
It's just ramen noodle clammy,
dude. That's what's so crazy, man. It's like literally U.S. tech, U.S. research and development that we create here that we just don't fund at the national level. We don't care enough in order to
through on it.
Yeah,
Greg, aren't you excited? We're all going to have to go to China for medicine.
Yeah.
That's what's exciting. And then we're gonna have manufacturing in the US. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's so frustrating, man. It's so embarrassing.
It really is. I mean, even like in the nuclear industry, like China's destroying us. It's like,
oh my god, dude, the fission stuff that China's doing is fusion. I mean, it's awesome. They're going all in on it.
The fusion stuff. Okay, I told them before. It's a tough thing. It's a long ways away. The material science for it is a bloody mess to deal with.
Oh yeah,
it won't be done, but it will be wild. And like the worst part, like I'll tell you, one of the dumbest things that's going to cause a headache and a half. That's going to take years and years and years for us to sort this out. So the cladding is both toxic and it's going to be highly radioactive. But not highly radioactive enough for us to put in containments, which we have a protocol for. And it's not low enough to where we can just put in dump sites. And it's a class C3 plus. And so we're going to have to create a new protocol of how to just deal with this one specific type of partially highly radioactive material that is also toxic, which the protocol is just to leave outside.
What's becoming radioactive? I don't understand that.
Oh, the cladding. Yeah. So, if you think about, we're going to have a plasma. That plasma is going to be filled with tritium and neutrinium. And that is going to have a bunch of secondary neutrinos, neutrons, and protons that are going to escape a little bit of the magnetic field, and it's going to embed itself onto the cladding of the inner wall, and that is going to have increased DPS, and then it's going to have partial irradiation going through. So
so it's like they literally have to like reskin the inside of these reactors every once in a while, and that like material they take out
precisely
is the radioactive stuff.
Exactly, but it's also toxic. And our protocol for radioactive materials is to leave it outside, but it can't be toxic because then it's going to go into the water wells. Because it's a lot of beryllium and a lot of we do a lot of funky metalloids to have the right properties. It's very messy. We'll see. I mean, we'll see how that all plays out. My professor, he just went to he was in industry for a long time, and then he went to the private sector. And I always keep up with him because we have these conversations. It's gonna be messy, but hopefully we're gonna get somewhere within 20 years. That's the goal there.
So I always like to compare algae biofuels with cold fusion. So it's like I'll race
10 years,
you, dude. I'll race you, bro.
10 years. Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
And a bit of a pivot back to it. Do you think that they're going to start using these algae biofoods as essentially a cheap filler to drive down food cost?
Dude, I hope so.
So
That'd be rad.
Awesome.
I mean, so that's like a tricky area because it's like you're getting into like processed foods and everything, and like you need to make something palatable and FDA approved and like market it and get it on a shelf and put it in a freezer. So there's like all this complicated stuff that goes into that. The easier, the cheaper solution is to essentially use it as a high protein, high quality animal feed to increase the health and the productivity of the animals that we're already farming. So it's works really well in aquaculture because fish love to eat algae. So, growing algae and then using it to feed fish. Usually the thing that you usually feed fish in aquaculture is fish, right? So you have to go to the ocean, you have to catch a bunch of fish, you make fish meal, and then you feed the fish that you're farming the fish meal from the fish that you just caught, right?
Isn't most of the money on the end human, not necessarily the feedstocks?
I mean, you still have to feed them if you're going to grow salmon, though. Like, you have to feed them something. So it's not just about money. It's like you have to grow an animal by feeding it protein, right? So if you're able to like essentially not rely on like Peruvian anchovies that you have to go grind up. First, you got to go down there and you're fighting with all these other fishermen and it's international waters and like you got to make fish meal and then like bring it back just so you can like throw it into a pond of like salmon and you're growing salmon here. Like,
do you think you can beat soybeans? Like even with all the subsidies going to like soybean farming, algae could be
soybeans like the worst thing to give to animals, right? Because soybeans evolved with proteins that animals hate to digest. So plants do not like to be eaten by animals, and they evolved,
Really?
they evolved defensive mechanisms and proteins that like ruin your digestion. So that's why these animals are unhealthy. When you feed them a bunch of, you can only put so much soy meal into animal feed before the animals are just like, I'm not eating it, dude. I don't want it. Right?
Interesting.
It causes digestive issues with these animals. So algae never evolved those proteins because algae doesn't care about fish eating it, so there's no defensive mechanism. There's no like, oh no, I don't want to be eaten. Like, so you can just grow it. It's this pure, super digestible form of protein, and you can then feed it you can like supplement it into animal feeds. And like, it's from trials that, have been published, it's really effective feed supplement. Super, super nutritious, very, very digestible. But it's like, you still have to produce it, and that's where stuff is like, kind of coming online, and you got to get the cost down of production so you can use more of it. But that's like another example of like, back to like the silver bullet analogy. It's like there's an opportunity to utilize this to supplement, these other areas of our civilization where it's like we're relying on lower quality things to produce the products, the foods that we want to feed and eat. So there's like better ways that we could do it and better ways that we can engineer the systems.
Yeah. And help me understand too, in terms of input cost, right? Assuming that you can like just grow these in like typical like little lakes that, anyone could theoretically build in their backyard. Is there massive fertilizer inputs like there is for like a soybean?
Yeah, it requires fertilizer, but it's not massive. No, it's on par with like fertilizer for plants. You have to use it. They require it. So it's a cost. It's like, it's probably like, I don't know, 10% of the cost. Okay. Fertilizer. It's not like an insane amount.
Gotcha. And I'm assuming you need to feed them sugar.
No.
Okay.
No, they make the sugar.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, no, they're photosynthetic. They're plants, right? You're not feeding your corn sugar, right? They're a plant. They're getting all their energy from the sun.
They're pure photosynthesis based algae.
I mean, depends on what you're talking about, but yeah, there are some that like you can grow on sugar, but like, I guess I figured we were talking about doing like the simplest, phototrophic sun-based approach. But yeah, there's certain fermentation systems, or you can do like what's called mixotrophic, where you're like doing both sun and sugar You can kind of get like both of those metabolisms cranking at the same time, get super productive stuff going.
Gotcha. But for economic, most people are probably going to go photosynthetic.
For economic, yes, photosynthetic stuff's always your cheapest, right? But yeah, if you wanted to do sugar-based, heterotrophic or fermentation approaches, that exists too, and you can get like a much cleaner product. But yeah, that's going to be a higher cost. So,
and that's probably for more like big pharma in terms of getting peptides and proteins that we need.
Yeah, or just like human proteins. Like if they're going to be like proteins that you're going to put into like that product that we were talking about before, of just like protein into like a pasta or a dumpling or like whatever. Like you want stuff that's going to be like through a FDA approved pathway, So you're going to want to have like as much precision and control over that. You don't want to have it in like an open pond where like stuff's blowing in from the wind, because you don't want to feed that to people. So you want to do that in like a super sterile stainless steel tank, and that requires sugar because you're in a stainless steel tank. So there's no light getting into it. You would do it through that pathway.
It's interesting. We have such high standards for algae, but probably not so much for like other typical animals or plants who, probably have like heavy metals or like,
no, we got insanely high standards for everything, man.
Okay.
Algae also grows slower than bacteria and yeast too. So like the contamination is, they just do worse.
Yeah, but like for other, like, I mean, for animals, the CMVA, which is the FDA equivalent it's the Center for Veterinary Medicine. The standards there are insane, dude. So like you do anything with any animal that's going to go into any, household, insane standards, insane testing, insane quality control. Like America's fantastic at that.
Okay. And I mean, are they actually like testing every single individual animal, or is it more just like from individual farms? Like they do a yearly check?
I think that they do like a batch check. It depends on what products you're talking about. And I don't work in that space at all, so I'm not sure. But like, if you're like, if you're producing like milk, for example, right, you submit like your every truck of milk has like a sample taken out of it and sent for analysis, to make sure it's not like, this is how we get like food recalls. Cause like, oh shit, this one has a bacteria contamination, recall that batch,
Shit. Okay. Huh. So it's probably the exact same for algae in terms of, they treat it no different than they would any other agricultural product, even if it's just being feedstock for another animal.
Yeah. If you're feeding it, like to get something to be a certified, like US approved feed for an animal, it requires a lot of feed trials and a lot of research and a lot of understanding. And the product that you're going to be producing, the process can't change over that time, So you need to have like a set process. Like, I'm going to do this exact same thing the same way to make sure I'm making the same stuff. And you need to do a bunch of like trials and research and understanding, like making sure this is not going to negatively impact the animals that we're dealing with. So.
Gotcha. I thought it was kind of just like, hey, this is private industry. I go to Jimmy Bob down the street to buy some hay, and the government doesn't even know about the transaction.
Yeah, I mean that exists too. So
gotcha, but probably not for frontier technologies that you're trying to push for. You need to get way more regulatory buy-in before you become more established.
Yeah, it's good. You want to have the regulatory approval. Like you can. There's a lot of ways that you can just like, you can slap a label on anything, like any vitamin, any supplement, slap it on, not FDA approved, boom, throw it on the shelf. That's all you got to do, So it's like, but you want to have the regulatory approval is my point.
Makes sense. For sure.
What's the worst case scenario you think for the industry? Like what would be your Hindenburg?
I don't think there is one.
I don't think there is one. Oh, just my answer. Like, dude, we already had a Hindenburg. Like we had everyone knows about algae biofuels, but no one's ever seen one. That's our Hindenburg, man.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
It doesn't explode. It won't kill people. You're not going to have a pathogen that kills a bunch of people. It's not going to...
No, our Hindenburg, seriously, our Hindenburg happened, and our Hindenburg was too much hype before the technology was ready, right? It was overpromised, right?
Underdelivered.
and under-delivered, and that's unfortunate because like people have a bad taste in their mouth, especially when it comes to like private equity or something, and they're like, well, why didn't it work out? And it's like, well, man, everyone got super excited because oil went to $150 a barrel or whatever it was back with the Iraq War and everything, and it was like when you look on paper, yeah, these things make a lot of sense when oil is that expensive. So it's like, oh my gosh, we can finally compete because it's an expensive thing to do. So this is why you don't want to be tied to a global commodity that can rise and fall by 20%, though, and just kill your business overnight.
You know what's quite funny? So as a background, I forgot your name. Is it Frank?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Frank. It's kind of funny, right? So I feel like all of our industries kind of have this massive wave of influx of capital and then a massive reduction, right? Because over promise, under deliver, right? Like Joe, all of us were talking about space travel beforehand, and we're talking about data centers in space. I'm from the nuclear industry, which we've had massive, waves coming in and out, and again, same thing. It's so frightening, right? Because like one of the issues is we need capital injection for research. We need capital injection for industry professionals for things to mature. And when things fail, and especially because of private equity, especially right now, like we see a massive downturn of private equity coming in, these speculative industries that can become market dominance and can reach maturity for not only profit but actually benefiting the world will not seek to it because we overpromise, underdeliver, and the industry thinks that, and then industry ties to investors that want the thought more than the actual product, and then we are kind of in these things where now we have a lot of hiccups to deal with.
Dude,
I don't know. It's so
really well said. Really well said. I totally felt that in this industry. So it's really challenging. ExxonMobil was a pretty obvious offender of that. They did their whole, like, everyone saw ExxonMobil's algae biofuel commercials, and it was like, and the company spent, the budget was like, I think they spent 30% of their total budget on marketing. So 70% research on a product that wasn't commercially viable, and then 30% of that budget on marketing. Like, can you name any other company that would spend that much percentage of their budget marketing something that wasn't commercially available, right? That's just pure greenwashing. And it's like overhyping, and it's saying like, look, we've got, like, imagine if SpaceX was spending 30% of their budget on, hey, we're going to Mars, advertising. SpaceX spending 30% of their budget saying, everyone, we're going to Mars next year. We're going to be there. And you're just getting blasted with commercials, blasted with billboards, right? Like, no, they wouldn't do that, dude. Like, it was because they're not trying to, whatever, going to Mars, greenwashing equivalent would be. But, like, it's ridiculous that, like, at least for our industry, like, we got hit by like oil companies doing that because they're all like, ooh, this pencils out, it looks cool, like, it's green, it's bubbling, people love that, awesome, let's like use that as a marketing thing and like overpromise. And then when like people are actually like, hey, whatever happened to that technology, where is it? And it's like, well, like I said before, like we're still at year honestly, like maybe 30, maybe you could say year 50 in terms of technology development in relation to like agricultural crops that are at year 10,000, right? So we've done 50 years worth of work so far, and all the food we eat has done 10,000 years worth of work in development. So like it's not fair to like put that on us, right now. Like, give us some time.
Do you have a rivalry with like the mushroom researchers who like think mushrooms can be used as a like generic like wonder organism for all sorts of agricultural purposes?
Not a rival. An ally. I don't know.
Yeah, all microbes, man. I think it's all.
But I mean, it's microbes. Good. I mean, like, yeah, you're talking. I mean, mushrooms are yeasts and funguses, and like, again, like I said, like a lot of the clothing that you're wearing came from like a yeast or a fungus. Like industrial microbes, industrial fermentation of yeasts and fungi is how we make like so many of our enzymes that are in cleaning products. How we make so many of our our chemicals and everything, and our fibers. Like it's the whole industry that most people don't know.
What type of
exists.
fibers?
Like polyesters, dude. Polyurethane.
Okay. I follow that. All right, okay. I was like, are you telling me that we make synthetic cotton with these vats?
That's what polyester is. But yeah, we make them in vats. Like, yeah. Like nylon. Dude, nylon comes out of like a fermentation tank,
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is so freaking cool.
We like engineer these microbes to make, mostly it's to make proteins that we put into like cleaning products that then like, take the stains out of your clothes, right? Like Tide, Johnson & Johnson, those companies do insane amounts of engineering and fermentation production for all sorts of industrial chemicals and industrial proteins that we use every day in our life.
I guess my big question would be like rival in the sense of like, I'm sure both sides think that like their species line and their germ lines can take on more and more industry. But like, if you had to pitch why algae are probably going to be the more versatile, more marketable organism to carry on a lot of these processes, what would you do to like convince someone?
Chloroplast, right? So you get your energy from the sun versus a yeast has to get its energy from some reduced carbon. So that's the advantage. Otherwise, like in terms of like biotechnology development, like bacteria and yeasts are 100 years ahead of algae. So the genetic tools they have are much more advanced. The money behind it, the industry behind it, is much more advanced. So they're 100 years ahead of us. But the advantage is that my algae can grow in the sunlight and theirs can't.
Gotcha. No input costs.
No one. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Well, dude, thank you guys so much. Thank you for the awesome conversation. It's awesome. Joey and Giuliano have been here for 3 hours. So thank you guys so much. It's been awesome.
I know,
Frank.
right? I'm thinking about it. I was like, oh gosh, I have a meeting in like in 5 hours.
Yeah, thank you. And Frank, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. You're always welcome on.
This is fun popping on, guys. So
you guys are awesome. Appreciate it. It's so much to learn.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate
Thanks,
you guys. Thank you. Anytime. Come on anytime.
Right.
As always,
Greg.
Frank. Thanks, brother.
Right.
Appreciate you.
Do well. See you guys.
All right. See you guys. Dude, thank you guys. That was so cool. That was so awesome. I did not expect that. I was expecting to debate people all night. And thank you, Afon. Thank you for the gift. That was really nice of you.